Chapter 230. Brother Shao is too pitiful. After the Zhang family finished setting off the firecrackers, they bade Gu Yundong and HR family good night and closed the door. Gu Yundong was about to set off firecrackers when she suddenly saw the quiet Shao family. Ever since they moved to the new house, Zhang who had also returned home. Shao Qing'an was the only one left in the Shao family. She thought about how he was alone. Although he had prepared some New Year goods, they were not much. Shao Qing'an had helped her buy the firecrackers, so Gu Yundong really did not know if he had prepared them for himself. At the side, Gu Yunshu also looked at the Shao family's door. She sighed and said faintly, "Brother Shao is too pitiful." Gu Yundong's heart skipped a beat. She lowered her head and asked Gu Yunshu, "Do you dare to release these firecrackers?" Gu Yunshu clenched his fists. He had never done it, but he had seen kids crying after being injured by the firecrackers. At that time, she was quite afraid. Now, she was a little excited and had forgotten about that. But now that eldest sister asked, he remembered again. Gu Yunshu looked at his elder sister resentfully. After thinking about it, he felt that he did not have to be afraid. He was a little man and could handle dangerous matters. He took a deep breath and was about to nod when Gu Yundong said to him in a low voice, "Eldest sister doesn't dare either. Why don't you ask Brother Shao to help us light them?" Gu Yunshu held his breath and ran towards the Shao family after being pushed by Gu Yundong. The Tong family members standing behind Gu Yundong were speechless. Actually they dared. However, they could only be invisible now. They did not dare to say or ask anything. On the other hand, the young lady, Gu Yunka, looked up as she ate peanuts. "Elder sister, Kiki will light the fire. Kiki is amazing." Gu Yundong looked at the little one beside her leg and coughed lightly. She lowered her head and said, "How about we let you set off the fireworks later? Those will fly into the sky with a swish. It's very beautiful." The little girl thought for a moment and nodded. Beautiful. She was very vain now. When she heard that she was beautiful, her eyes immediately lit up and she waited obediently. Shao Qing'an came over very quickly with a smile on his face. When he met Gu Yundong's gaze, his smile became a little strange. Gu Yundong quickly looked away and said to him, "You do this." "Okay." Shao Qing'an immediately agreed. He went forward, took the firecrackers, and tied them to a long wooden stick. After handing the head of the wooden stick to Gu Yundong, he took a matchstick and blew on it. He went forward and lit the primer before immediately retreating. The next moment, a crackling sound rang in everyone's ears. Gu Yundong handed the long wooden stick to Shao Qing'an and stood beside Gu Yunshu. The two children were jumping around, and it was unknown what they were saying. They could not be heard at all amidst the firecrackers. After a while, the firecrackers were finished. Gu Yundong then took out the fireworks. The young lady was very bold. Sure enough, she took the lighter and lit it. However, after touching it, she immediately ran back and hid in Gu Yundong's arms without looking. There was no movement for a long time. The young lady raised her head slightly and turned to look. Gu Yunshu, who was at the side, held his belly and laughed. "Ha ha 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 ha, it wasn't lit at all." In the end, it was Gu Yunshu who lit it. The little fellow was very excited. With a bang, the fireworks shot into the sky and exploded into dazzling flames. Everyone looked up with satisfied smiles on their faces. The villagers who had already closed their doors ran to the courtyard to take a look when they heard the commotion. They would get better and better in the new year. Chapter 231. Receiving red packets for the new year. After the fireworks, the Gu residence was about to close, so Shao Qing'an went back. However, when he returned home, he went straight to the roof and lay on it to listen to the continuous firecrackers in the village. He turned his head slightly and looked at the Gu family. Unfortunately, the Gu family's house was built so high that he could only see the walls. Not daring to light a fire? Well, if you say you don't dare, so be it. On New Year's Eve, Shao Qing'an lay on the roof and stayed up all night. Early in the morning on the first day of New Year, Madame Yang put on new clothes for the two children and sat happily in front of the dressing table to put on makeup. Previously, Gu Yundong saw that her hands were so cold that they had frostbite, so she bought frostbite cream. Later on, she even bought face cream and lip cream to prevent her skin and lips from cracking and bleeding from the cold. Madame Yang had been using it for a while, and her face was much tenderer now. After cleaning up, The three of them left the room and ran to Gu Yundong's room to pay their New Year greetings. Gu Yundong held a red packet in his hand and gave one to each of them. After dinner, she gave each of the Tong family a red packet. Soon after, Dong Xiaolan brought the three children to pay a New Year visit. Gu Yundong had prepared a lot of dried fruits, pastries, and sweets. If anyone came, Gu Yundong asked made sugar water, representing the sweetness of the new year. The Gu family was very lively. Many people came one after another. Shi Dashan's family of 4, Feng Daning's family of 4, as well as the people who worked in the workshop, the villagers who built her house, and other families who had connections to all came happily. Gu Yunshu and his sister had already gone to the village chief's house to pay their New Year greetings. They were also looking for Niu Dan to play with. On the other hand, Shao Qingyuan hadn't come. At noon, when everyone was almost home, he came over to eat. This was what they had agreed on at that time. He would eat breakfast at the Zhang family's house and lunch and dinner at the Gu family's house. This way, he would not be alone for the new year. Gu Yundong had also prepared a red packet for him. Unexpectedly, before he could take it out, Shao Qingyuan handed one to her. The two of them were stunned at the same time. Gu Yundong blinked and heard Shao Qingyuan say, "I thought that auntie might not remember this, so I prepared it for you. You'll have a red packet for the new year too." Madame Yang really did not remember that. She had even happily accepted one. Gu Yundong's eyes burned as she looked at the redness in her palm. This was not only the first red packet she had received in this world, but also the first she had received in her 2 lifetimes. In her previous life when she had a phone, there were indeed people in the group who sent it, but it was everyone who fought for it. The red packet that was handed to her alone was actually so precious. Gu Yundong lowered her eyes. After a while, she looked up and smiled. "Thank you." Later on, she went back to her room and opened it. There were 10 taels of silver inside. It was actually the same as what she had prepared for him. Gu Yundong did not know how much money Shao Qingyuan had now. During the new year, she had given him his 10%. However, Shao Qingyuan had only taken out a banknote worth 100 taels of silver and returned the rest to her. He said that the money was enough for him. He would leave the rest to her as an investment. He had also bought some New Year goods during the new year. Many of the things at home had been changed. He probably did not have much money on hand now. Gu Yundong stuffed the 10 taels of silver back into the red packet. She took out a metal box from her storage and placed the red packet inside. There were a lot of things in the metal box. She had placed the deeds and household registrations inside. Chapter 232. The Qian family's granny is here on the 2nd day of the new year. Everyone started to visit their relatives. Dong Xiaolan brought the children to her parents' house. Gu Yundong did not have any relatives to visit, so she brought Madame Yang and the other 2 to the county school to wish Mr. Qin a happy new year. In the afternoon, they went to the Lu residence. Old Master Lu had a married eldest daughter who happened to be back, so they did not go out. On the 3rd day of the new year, Gu Yundong did not go out again. Zhang Gang brought his family over, and Zhao Zhu actually brought Goxing over to pay New Year greetings. On the 4th day of the new year, an unexpected person came to the door. This person was wearing patched clothes and holding a walking stick. Her hair indicated that she was already half 100 years old, and she was trembling as she stood at the entrance and looked around. Father Tong almost thought that she was here to beg. After asking a few more questions, he found out that this old lady was old Madame Qian from the neighboring village. She said that she was here to return the money. However, when she reached the house and saw the imposing door, she was a little afraid. Her heart was beating like a drum, so she hesitated and did not dare to knock. Father Tong did not recognize this person and quickly went to report to Gu Yundong. Gu Yundong asked her to come in first. Seeing that the old lady was very cold, she quickly moved the brazier over to let her warm up. At this moment, she also remembered who the Qian family in the neighboring village was. It was the big Qian that she had caught with when he came to her house to be a thief with Zhuangzi and Hu Liang. Back then, when she asked the 4 of them to hand over 5 taels of silver, Hu Liang handed it over. Zhao Zhu's family was all right, and they gritted their teeth and handed it over. Zhuangzi's family handed over a little, and the rest was paid off. Only Big Qian. At that time, 3 of the 4 people's families had arrived, but no one from his family had come. Therefore, in the end, he left after writing an IOU. There was no news after he left. Later, when Zhuangzi became familiar with her, he told her that Big Qian had gone out to look for work. He only had one grandmother. She was old and clumsy. When Big Qian was born, he fell sick. His parents brought him to the county city to see a doctor. The county city was very chaotic that year. At that time, the county magistrate was not only afraid of death, but also extremely stupid. There was a fight in the city every other day. His parents were implicated and both died. In the end, Big Qian was brought back by a fellow villager. He even recovered from his illness. Rumors spread among the villagers in an instant. They said that he was a jinx who doomed his parents and exchanged his parents' lives for his own. Big Qian had been criticized since he was young. Even though his grandmother did not believe those words and was good to him, he still developed an inferiority complex and a sensitive and malicious personality. He didn't have any friends when he was young and was often beaten up until he was covered in injuries. Later on, he slowly grew up and knew how to fight back, but he couldn't beat most of them. Hu Liang could be considered his first friend. Not only did he help him when he was beaten up, but he also brought him along. After following him, Big Qian knew that what Hu Liang did was not the right path. But what did it matter? They were friends and should help each other. Besides, these people scolded him and hit him first. They only stole a little and didn't hurt them. Look, after he followed Hu Liang, these people were scared to death when they saw him. Grandma Qian was furious because of this, but what could she do? She was old and could not control it. It was not until a few months ago when Grandma Qian fainted from anger, and the doctor said that she could not be agitated anymore that Big Qian came back to his senses. He only had one family member. They had relied on each other since he was young. How could he bear to let anything happen to her? Therefore, Big Qian went to Hu Liang and said that he did not plan to fool around in the future and would farm obediently. Of course, Hu Liang was unwilling. Even Zhuangzi and Gosheng could not understand at that time. They scolded him for being ungrateful and worse than a beast. However, Big Qian had already made up his mind. He had no choice. In the end, Hu Liang asked him to do one last job. At that time, they had gone to steal Gu Yundong's money, but they failed. Chapter 233. Return the money. Not only did he fail, but he also had to pay 5 taels of silver. How could the Qian family have it? Actually, the old lady of the Qian family had also heard that something had happened to her grandson and rushed to Yongfu village. However, she walked slowly and met Big Qian halfway. The next day, he went out to look for work and never came back. Gu Yundong had never thought of urging them to repay their debts. Although she had an IOU on hand, she did not write down the repayment date at that time. After knowing that Big Qian only had Grandma Qian at home, she would not go. Unexpectedly, Grandma Qian came to visit during the new year. The room was warm. Grandma Qian felt that her hands were not as cold as before, so she slowly took out a cloth bag. The cloth bag was spread out in her hand. She opened it layer by layer, slowly revealing the silver inside. Trembling, she placed the silver pieces on the table one by one and counted them as she did so. When she was done, she looked at Gu Yundong. "Miss, this is the 5 taels of silver that we owe you. I've brought it all over." Gu Yundong was speechless for a long time. Grandma Qian lowered her head and said in a low voice, "Big Qian is a good child. He just took a wrong turn in a moment of folly and won't do it again. He didn't want to default on this money." That day, he ran out to find work and only came back this morning. As soon as he arrived home, he said that he had earned the money he owed you. Now that he's tired and sleeping at home, I brought it over for you. "Miss, I'm sorry. Please forgive him and don't blame him, okay?" Gu Yundong met her slightly turbid eyes and felt a lump in her throat. After a while she said in a slightly hoarse voice, "Yes, I'll forgive him if he can change his ways." The wrinkles on Grandma Qian's face loosened, and she smiled until her eyes narrowed. All right. I'll go back now." After saying that, she took her walking stick and was about to leave. She did not even ask for the IOU. Gu Yundong quickly helped her sit down. "Granny Qian, there's no hurry to leave. It's the new year. How can you not even drink a glass of water when you come to my house? Come, this is sugar water. Try it. It's sweet." "Miss, Besides, Big Qian even gave me an IOU back then. I don't even know where I put it. I have to find it and return it to you, lest I can't explain it in the future, right? When Grandma Qian heard this, she remembered that there was such a thing. This time, it was not easy for her to leave. Gu Yundong placed the walking stick aside and stuffed a warm cup into her hand. She subconsciously picked it up and took a sip. She was stunned. It was really sweet. It was different from the brown sugar she drank when she was young. Other than sweetness, there was no other taste. Gu Yundong brought her soft pastries again, but the old man refused to eat them. At this moment, Gu Yunshu and Gu Yunka returned. She waved and asked them to coax Grandma Qian to eat. She turned around and returned to her room, quickly finding the IOU. She looked at the note in her hand and sighed slightly. She had to accept the 5 taels of silver. Since the guy had done it, he had to pay the price. If she saw that the other party was pitiful and let him go easily, then how could she manage the workshop and shop? When the other party did something wrong later, he would cry in front of her and complain. Then, her workshop would at most be at this size. However, she could not watch Grandma Qian go back just like that. Grandma Qian was a good person. She had never thought of giving this old woman a hard time. Moreover, to be able to earn 5 taels of silver in such a short period of time, Big Qian was clearly not too stupid. Chapter 234. Unexpected person. When Gu Yundong came out again, she had something in her hand. Grandma Qian, who was in the central room, was indeed coaxed by the 2 children to eat something. The smile on her face became brighter. Grandma Qian, this is the IOU. Take it back and let Big Qian burn it in the stove. Then, the debt between us will be written off. Grandma Qian took the note and opened the cloth bag. She carefully placed the note inside and covered it before putting it back into her arms. Then he'll leave now. She felt a little embarrassed after eating such good pastries. She quickly grabbed her walking stick and was about to leave. Gu Yundong smiled. There's no hurry. There's still something here for you to bring back. Ha! Why are you giving something to me? When she narrowed her eyes and saw the cloth and meat in her hand, she widened her eyes in shock. This is for me? Why are you giving it to me? It's not just for you. Zhuangzi and Gaoxing's families also have it. They've also returned the money. She didn't mention the New Year goods that these 2 families were given for working for her. Did Grandma Qian think that the Gu family was kind enough to offer meat and cloth as a reward for returning the money? She was a little confused now, but the Shi family and the Zhao family had them. She thought that everyone had agreed. Gu Yundong saw that her hand was trembling slightly, so she called Tong Shuitao over and handed her the things. Send Granny Qian back. All right. Tong Shuitao took the things and helped Grandma Qian away. Gu Yundong did not turn around to get busy until they had completely walked out of the door. What she did not know was that not long after they left the door, Tong Shuitao squatted down and carried Grandma Qian away. The Qian family's matters were settled. After the 4th day of the new year, the workshop started work again on the 5th day of the new year. The villagers were very excited. They even went to the Lu family's courtyard early in the morning and started to clean up. Gu Yundong also gave everyone a red packet for opening the business. It was not much. 10 copper coins per person was just a token to get good luck. The shop in the county city was also open. Zhuangzi had an especially comfortable new year. How should he put it? He ate well and had work to do. Most importantly, the relatives who used to look down on his family now had a hint of flattery in their words. Zhuangzi was very impatient with these people. In the past, he had never visited his relatives during the new year. When something happened to his family, he had never seen these people reach out. They only made sarcastic remarks. In the past few years, the Shi couple would take Lan Huaner for a walk. After all, the 2 children were already grown. If they want to get married in the future, their reputation would be very important. This year, Zhuangzi had followed them for 3 days just to show off. There were actually people who wanted to arrange a marriage for Zhuangzi, but Zhuangzi rejected them expressionlessly. He even went to see Big Qian and Gaoxing. When he found out that Big Qian had returned the money and the Gu family had even sent something over, he patted his shoulder and sighed. Work hard in the future and take care of your grandmother. If there's a chance in the future, it'll help you ask if you can work for the Gu family. It's really good to work for the Gu family. It's easy to talk about marriage in the future if you have money. Zhuangzi now held Gu Yundong in high esteem. He felt that if Gu Yundong could use him, she would definitely be able to use Big Qian in the future. Although she was a little cruel at times, as long as he listened, he would be able to get candy. Big Qian was still a little uncomfortable, but when he thought of Tong Shui Tao and those things that his grandmother had brought back that day, the discomfort he felt towards the Gu family was almost gone. Gosheng was now working for his father, helping him tidy up the orchard. This guy was also very obedient. The four thieves had all turned over a new leaf. Other than Hu Liang, who had broken his legs and was still lying in bed. Even his parents had begun to despise him. Gu Yundong's workshop and shop were on the right track. There was no problem for the time being. But an unexpected person came to Yongfu village that day. Chapter 235. Aunt Ku is here. When they saw another carriage drive into the village and ask for the Gu family's address, the villagers of Yongfu village were already numb. In any case, almost all the carriages entering the village were looking for the Gu family. However, the children in the village still skipped behind the carriage to join in the fun. The carriage stopped at the entrance of the Gu residence. A woman in plain clothes got out of the carriage. After the person handed the money to the coachman, the carriage turned around and left. The people behind the carriage suddenly realized that the carriage was rented. The woman stood at the Gu family's entrance and looked up at the imposing green brick-tiled house in front of her. She laughed and said in a low voice, "I knew that girl was capable. It's only been a while, but she actually has the money to build such a big house." Madame Cui did not know her. Seeing that she was standing at the door and did not enter, she could not help but take a step forward. "May I ask who you are looking for?" "Gu Yundong's house is here, right?" The woman retracted her gaze and asked with a smile. MDM Cui nodded. "Yes, this is the Gu family. May I ask who you are?" "I'm..." The woman was about to answer when the sound of a carriage rolling suddenly came from behind. A child shouted, "Gu Yunshu, you're back. Your relative is here." In the carriage, Gu Yunshu scratched his head. "Relative?" He opened the curtain of the carriage and looked outside. Coincidentally, the woman turned around and their eyes met. The woman smiled. Yes, the skinny and weak little fellow finally had some flesh on his face. He looked decent in his student uniform and was somewhat useful to Gu Yundong. Gu Yunshu's eyes lit up and he hurriedly wanted to jump down from the carriage. Father Tong was so frightened that he quickly hugged him and let him land steadily. The next moment, Gu Yunshu rushed towards the woman. "Aunt Ku, why are you here? When did you come? Have you eaten? Why don't you come in?" Aunt Ku hugged him and squatted down to pinch his little face. "I just came over. Did you come back from school? If I had known earlier, I would have let the carriage walk slower. Who knows, we might have bumped into each other on the way. I've been riding the carriage all day. I'm very tired. In order to reach your village before dark, the coachman worked so hard that my old bones almost scattered. I only ate 2 little buns on the way. I specially came to your house on an empty stomach and let your sister cook braised pork for me. Io, you're getting more and more beautiful. You look really energetic in these clothes. Have you been in school for a few days? How's the teacher of the school? Did any of your classmates bully you? How many friends have you made? Is the school very far away? Your elder sister is really too much. Why didn't she find a closer place for you? Look at the cold weather. You have to rush to school in the morning. You'll fall sick from the cold." Gu Yunshu chuckled. He knew that Aunt Ku looked serious, but she could ramble on for 2 hours without stopping in front of him and his sister. But even so, Gu Yunshu was very happy and did not find her annoying at all. "It's only been a month. Aunt, let's go in first. It's cold at the door. I'll bring you to see our house. My house is very beautiful. Come." He pulled Aunt Ku inside. "Eldest sister, mother, Kiki, Aunt Ku is here." Gu Yundong was in the backyard with Madame Yang and Gu Yunka. She did not know what had happened in front. Now that Gu Yunshu was shouting at the top of his lungs, she could vaguely hear him. She was stunned and quickly ran out. "Aunt Ku? It's really you. Why are you here?" Chapter 236. Serious business. Aunt Ku no longer had that kind expression when facing Gu Yundong. She snorted softly. "Why? Can't I come?" "Of course you can come. The 2 little ones were talking about you 2 days ago." Gu Yundong quickly invited her to sit in the central room. Gu Yunshu had already rushed over to pour some sugar water. Aunt Ke took a sip and nodded. Looks like your business is doing well. Gu Yundong had sent her and Yetsong New Year's goods before the new year. She had asked Zhang Gang's family's bodyguard agency to deliver them. Among them was white sugar. She had also written a letter, but she had roughly mentioned her business without writing in detail. It's not bad. Aunt Ke nodded at her. You're pretending to be humble again. Then she looked at Gu Yunke. The young lady had not seen her for months. Although she knew Aunt Ke, she was still young and her mind was a little blurry. At this moment, she was standing behind her and looking at her curiously. Aunt Ke's heart melted from her big watery eyes. She hurriedly waved her hand. Kiki doesn't remember Aunt Ke? In the past, when you were at my house, you insisted on sleeping with me. Aunt Ke even told you many stories. Have you forgotten? Yes. Was it the big tabby cat story? Oh, so you still remember. Aunt Ke was even happier. Do you still want to hear it? This time, I'll tell you about the big yellow dog. The little girl nodded. Seeing her brothers and sisters looking at her with smiles, she immediately threw herself into Aunt Ke's arms. Aunt Ke had endless things to say to the two children. After speaking to Gu Yundong briefly, she ignored her. It was Gu Yunshu who whispered to her. Eldest sister, Aunt Ke said that she only ate 2 small buns today and wants to eat your braised pork. All right, eldest sister will cook it. Gu Yundong laughed. She instructed Gu Yunshu to chat with her, but he must not tire Aunt Ke out. She turned her head and instructed Madame Jiang to clean up the guest room. Then, she went into the kitchen. She had not cooked in a long time, so she could show off her skills. Aunt Ke was tired after all. She went to the guest room to sleep for almost an hour. When she woke up, she could have dinner. However, when she saw the unfamiliar man sitting in the Gu family's restaurant, she could not help but raise her eyebrows. As Aunt Ke, who had grown up with her childhood sweetheart and had a good relationship with him, she knew what Shao Qingyuan's gaze meant. No matter how obscure it was, she could clearly see the gaze that would drift to Gu Yundong from time to time. Moreover, this man was very aggressive. One look and one could tell that he was the kind of person who would not give up until he achieved his goal. Furthermore, he listened to Gu Yundong's every word and entered the kitchen whenever he was told to. Gu Yundong was used to his dog-like temper and would not fancy other men. Sooner or later, she would fall into his hands. Aunt Ke sighed inwardly. She had wanted to matchmake her silly nephew Nyetsong and Gu Yundong, but now it seemed that she should forget it. She would just focus on watching the show. Shao Qingyuan was a man of few words. He knew Aunt Ke and knew that she had helped the Gu family a lot. Hence, his attitude was friendly. He greeted her first and quietly became a listener. He ate braised pork. Seeing that his movements were not slow, even if Aunt Ke wanted to chat with the two children, she forcefully endured it and became a refined noblewoman who did not speak during meals. Let's eat first. However, after eating, it was more important to talk about serious matters first. Chapter 237. Does Big Sister not want me anymore? Aunt Ke wiped her mouth and went straight to the point. I came this time mainly because there's news from Dr. Song. Gu Yundong was shocked. Joy flashed across her face and she almost stood up in excitement. Really? Where is he? In Qing'an Prefecture. Qing'an Prefecture? Gu Yundong was stunned. Wasn't that Aunt Ke, physician He from Huimin Medical Center told me. He still remembers your mother's condition. Physician Song went back to Xuanhe Prefecture, but he only stayed for an hour to get some herbs before leaving. He said that he was going to Qing'an Prefecture. There's an important patient waiting for him there. Gu Yundong clenched her fists tightly and trembled slightly. She looked at Madame Yang, who was still confused, and the hope in her heart grew. I received the news yesterday and came over early this morning. Dr. Song should have left yesterday. He probably has to stay in Qing'an Prefecture for a period of time. At the very least, he has to treat that important patient. What do you think now? Gu Yundong slowly exhaled and held Madame Yang's hand with her fingers. The latter smiled and put her other hand on it. Gu Yundong's voice was slow and firm. I'm going to Qing'an Prefecture, of course. Aunt Ke smiled and said, I think so too. All right. Doctor He said that he doesn't know the address of Dr. Song's patient. If you go to Qing'an Prefecture, you can go to Huimin Medical Center there. You should be able to find out Dr. Song's whereabouts. Gu Yundong nodded. Okay. You previously said that your father agreed to meet you in Qing'an Prefecture. Since you're going over this time, are you going to ask about him? Yes. Gu Yundong said. Actually, I was thinking of going to Qing'an Prefecture after the Lantern Festival. I didn't expect you to send Dr. Song's message. Then I might as well set off early. There's no problem. Now that she had money, the workshop was stable, and she had a shop. There were servants at home who could take care of Madame Yang and the 2 children. Therefore, the matter of finding her father became urgent. After the Lantern Festival, she planned to make a trip to Qing'an Prefecture alone. But since Dr. Song was there, she had to bring Madame Yang along. Gu Yunshu listened from the side and quickly understood. He immediately jumped up and asked, Eldest sister, can mother's illness be cured and father be found? Gu Yunka jumped as well. That's great, that's great. When Madame Yang heard the word father, she suddenly looked up, and her eyes lit up. Although Gu Yundong also hoped that everything would go her way, she still had to tell the truth. I'm not sure yet. Of course, it's best if we can cure mother and find father, but nothing is absolute. I'm not sure yet. Gu Yunshu was a little disappointed, but he quickly pulled himself together. But there's still hope, right? That's right. Shao Qingyuan, who had been silent all this while, suddenly said, When do you plan to set off? There's no time to lose. Tomorrow it is. This time, even Aunt Ku was surprised. So fast. Yes, I'll make some arrangements in the morning and leave in the afternoon. The atmosphere in the central room suddenly became tense. Even Gu Yunka seemed to realize something. She quietly pulled Gu Yundong's hand and asked softly, Eldest sister, are you leaving? Where are you going? What about me? Gu Yundong carried her over. Eldest sister will be away for a while. Kiki, can you wait for eldest sister at home? The little girl burst into tears and hugged her neck tightly. Big sister, don't you want me anymore? Chapter 238. Explanation. Gu Yundong did not know whether to laugh or cry. She simply carried her out. As they walked, she coaxed her softly. How can eldest sister not want Kiki? Eldest sister is bringing mother to the doctor. Kiki also knows that mother is sick, right? The little girl buried her head in her arms, but she still nodded gently. That doctor is very far away now. Your eldest sister has to bring mother over quickly. This way, she can bring mother back as soon as possible. At that time, Kiki will be able to see eldest sister and mother again. At that time, will mother recover from her illness? It's possible. That doctor is very powerful. If eldest sister finds him, mother's illness will be cured. The little girl still hugged her neck tightly, and her sobbing gradually became softer. After a long time she said softly and firmly, Then eldest sister go. I'll be good. I'll wait at home. Independent Illinois also take care of older brother and not make him cry. Yes, Kiki is the best. The little girl lowered her head shyly and muttered softly, I cried just now. It wasn't very good. Gu Yundong burst out laughing. She looked down at Gu Yunshu, who had been following behind her silently. If eldest sister leaves, you will be the biggest man in our family. You have to take good care of your sister and study well. If you have anything you don't understand, ask the teacher. If you feel uncomfortable, tell Aunt Ku in time. Don't take off your clothes when you're hot. You'll catch a cold, understand? That's right. Gu Yundong had already thought it through. While she was away, she would ask Aunt Ku to help take care of Gu Yunka, who was staying at home. She thought that Aunt Ku must have had the intention to do that since she delivered the message personally at this time. Yes. The little guy hung his head low and was also in a low mood. Eldest sister was leaving, their mother was leaving, and their father was not around. Gu Yunshu felt that his mission was very important. Seeing that the 2 children were unhappy, Gu Yundong could not help but secretly sigh. After all, they had been together for a few months and had never been separated. This parting was also sudden, so it was normal for her to find it difficult to accept it. Gu Yundong coaxed the 2 children as she explained in detail what they should do after she left. Afraid that they wouldn't remember, she simply wrote it down. Anyway, Yunshu knew how to read. In addition, there were many people at home. The two children would not be short of food and clothes. The conditions in the old Gu family were much more difficult than now. Gu Yundong only came out after sending the two of them back to their rooms. She went to the guest room to look for Aunt Ku. Before she could speak, the latter said, "Don't worry, I'll stay at your house while you're gone. I have no problem taking care of the two children. Besides, I didn't expect you to have servants at your house. They can help." Gu Yundong trusted Aunt Ku. She took out a banknote. Aunt Ku frowned. "Why? Is this considered my salary? Do you want to be my boss?" She sounded very unhappy. Gu Yundong shook her head. "Of course not. This is the cost of food. You have to eat and wear, right? Keep the rest on you for emergencies. I don't know when he'll be back. When the weather warms up later, you still have to buy cloth to make clothes for Yunshu and the rest." Aunt Ku accepted it in satisfaction when she heard her tone. Gu Yundong came out after exchanging a few words with her. She still had some things to tell the Tong family. However, not long after she walked out of the guest room, she saw a figure standing in the courtyard. Shao Qingyuan's expression flickered under the night sky, looking a little cold. Chapter 239. I'll only be relaxed with you around seeing her. Shao Qingyuan straightened his body slightly and walked towards her. After standing still, he said, "I'll go with you." Gu Yundong shook her head. "No. If you encounter any danger on the way with nobody except Auntie, I can help." Gu Yundong smiled. "I brought my mother, brother, and sister here safely even when I was escaping from the wilderness. Now, my mother is the only one I'm taking. There's no problem." Shao Qingyuan frowned, but he didn't say anything. Gu Yundong sighed. "If you leave, what will happen to the family? What about the workshop? What about the shop? Aunt Ku is not from the village after all. She is not familiar with many things. The Tong family are servants. Although the people in the village don't say anything, there are many people who don't take them seriously. Mr. Qian lives in the county city. If anything happens, he won't be able to rush over in time. As long as you're here, I won't have anything to worry about. As long as you're here, I won't have anything to worry about." Shao Qingyuan's breathing suddenly stopped, and his heart raced. He lowered his eyes slightly and smiled bitterly. This person was always capable. He had already made up his mind to follow her no matter what she said, but he was convinced with just one sentence. He really wanted to seal her mouth. "Okay." In the end, he agreed. "I'll take care of your family and protect your siblings." "Thank you." Gu Yundong was telling the truth. With Shao Qingyuan's personality, identity, and ability, she was most assured to leave the family matters to him. Without Shao Qingyuan, she was not sure if she could go away so firmly. It was also at this moment that she realized that she seemed to have placed too much importance on him. Gu Yundong could not help but rub the space between her eyebrows. She thought that she had to sort out some feelings and think them through. She took out a lot of banknotes for Shao Qingyuan. "You have to accept this money this time. The orchard will require a lot of money to buy seedlings. Also, you have to come to the workshop to distribute the wages. After the Lantern Festival, you have to find Uncle Feng to build your own workshop. I've already drawn the specific blueprints. I'll give them to you later. You and Uncle Feng can discuss it." Gu Yundong looked up. "In short, you're in charge of everything here." "Okay." As they were leaving tomorrow, Gu Yundong spoke a lot. After Shao Qingyuan finished giving instructions, she went to the village chief Chen Liang's house and said that she would be away for a while. After that, she returned to pack her luggage. Actually, there wasn't much. There were only some clothes and shoes in her bag. The rest were all in her spatial storage. After going through everything, she returned to her room to sleep. The next morning, she got up early again and went to the kitchen to make a lot of good food. Then, she took some and put them into her spatial storage without anyone knowing. Her spatial storage could preserve freshness, so she could eat warm food on the way. She was not in a hurry to leave. After the two children got up and bade them farewell, she brought Madame Yang into the carriage under their reluctant gazes. Madame Yang didn't know what to do at first. It was only after Aunt Ku patiently explained it to her last night that she vaguely understood half of it. Tong Shui Tao had wanted to follow them to take care of their clothes, food, accommodation, and transportation, but she was rejected by Gu Yundong. She would definitely have to use the spatial storage a lot along the way. Forget it. Besides, she and Madame Yang were already missing from the team who processed white sugar. Every worker counted. When Gu Yundong drove the carriage to the county city, the city gate had just opened. Chapter 240. Departure to Qing'an Prefecture. Gu Yundong had to go to Qin Wenzheng's school. Qin Wenjing also knew a little about her family, but he really did not know that Madame Yang's illness needed to be treated by Dr. Song. He knew Dr. Song. He had even met him back then and said a few words. That person was really capable. However, back then, the late emperor was muddle-headed. Physician Song was clearly skilled in medicine, but he was framed. If not for the fact that he had once saved the late Empress Dowager's life and the Empress Dowager begged for mercy, Imperial Physician Song might not even be able to keep his life. Unfortunately, ever since Imperial Physician Song left the capital, Qin Wenjing did not know where he went. He heard that the emperor wanted to hire him back to the Imperial Hospital. So he was in Qing'an Prefecture? Qin Wenjing asked Gu Yundong to wait while he went to the study to write a letter. If you see Dr. Song, please help me pass this letter to him. Yunshu. Don't worry and leave everything to me. I'll also watch over your family. Okay. Gu Yundong received the letter and went to the Lu residence. She had met Old Master Lu a few times. Old Master Lu had imparted some business experience to her. Gu Yundong was quite grateful to him. This time, she came over to bid farewell to Lu Wei so that he wouldn't complain later that she didn't treat him as a friend. At the same time, if Old Master Lu had any experience, he could give Shao Qingyuan some pointers. Gu Yundong finally went to Gus. Zhuangzi was very happy to see her. He did not expect her to bring him such shocking news. When he heard that he should look for Shao Qingyuan if he had any problems in the future, he felt terrible. In the future, he would settle his own matters and try not to trouble others. After a whole circle, she had said everything she needed to say. Shao Qingyuan, Aunt Ku, Teacher Qin, and Old Master Lu were all reliable. She had nothing to worry about. Gu Yundong took a deep breath. After getting into the carriage, she went straight to the city gate. However, this time, they did not go home after leaving the city gate. Instead, they went straight to Qing'an Prefecture. Madame Yang opened the curtains and saw an unfamiliar scene flying in front of her. She felt a little flustered. She quickly lifted the curtain and saw Gu Yundong driving the carriage. She immediately calmed down. Gu Yundong heard the commotion behind her and could not help but turn around. What's wrong, mother? Madame Yang shook her head slightly. Nothing. I'll sit down immediately. Gu Yundong smiled. There's something to eat in the cabinet beside the carriage. If mother wants to eat it, you can take it yourself. Oh, okay. Madame Yang nodded repeatedly and carefully opened the cabinet beside her. There was sugar, preserved fruit, oranges, pastries, and a container with water in it. Madame Yang looked around and finally took a sip of water. She felt a little better and sat down obediently. She didn't know how long she had maintained this posture. After enduring it for a while, she finally couldn't help but ask, Dong Dong, where are we going? Mother, do you still remember where father has repeatedly instructed us to meet? Madame Yang knew this answer and said almost without thinking, Qing'an Prefecture. Yes, let's go to Qing'an Prefecture. The carriage drove very quickly. She did not stop at noon and only took out warm pancakes and buns from her space and handed them to Madame Yang. She had bought them in the county previously. There were 2 large bags. After Madame Yang finished eating, Gu Yundong casually took a few bites. When the sky was about to turn dark, they finally arrived at their first stop. Chapter 241. Seeing Gu Yundong's foolish smile, this was a small town with a small population. There were only 2 or 3 good inns in the town. Gu Yundong chose a rather lively inn and she only booked an upper room. When she was out, she naturally had to stay with Madame Yang. The day before, she slept late and woke up early. After dinner, she fell asleep as soon as she touched the pillow. On the other hand, Madame Yang was a little unaccustomed with her eyes open. Ah Shu and Kiki weren't around, but Dong Dong was. It was fine. Madame Yang turned sideways. She did not move, afraid that she would disturb Gu Yundong's rest. She just looked at her gently. Seeing that Gu Yundong had kicked the blanket away, she hurriedly covered her again nervously. Gu Yundong was a light sleeper when she was outside. She suddenly opened her eyes. Madame Yang immediately became helpless. Did I wake you up? I just wanted to cover you with a blanket. You'll catch a cold. Gu Yundong's expression immediately softened. She looked at the blanket on her body and said in a low voice, "It's okay. Go to sleep." Okay. This time, Madame Yang obediently closed her eyes and tried her best to fall asleep. Gu Yundong could not help but smile. She felt warm all over. Although her mother was innocent, she loved the children very much. She really hoped that they could successfully find Dr. Song this time and get him to treat her mother's illness. Her journey had been quite smooth. She hoped that this smoothness would continue. Gu Yundong closed her eyes and fell asleep quietly. The next morning, the two of them got up early and set off again. It was a long journey from Yongfu village to Qing'an Prefecture, and it was impossible for the horse to speed up every day. Even if they could take it, the horse could not. When she left home, the two little guys reminded her repeatedly to take good care of Wind Chaser. Therefore, Gu Yundong would be slow for a day if she rushed for 2 days. Dr. Song had only set off 2 days earlier than her. Qin Wenjing said that he was already old, so he definitely couldn't ride the carriage too quickly. Otherwise, he would fall sick. She should be able to make it. After 5 to 6 days, they were almost halfway through the journey. They would not always coincidentally encounter a town or county city and be able to stay in an inn. Sometimes, when it was dark and they happened to arrive at a village, they would stay here for the night. Just like this village called Fugueo Village. It was quite fitting to call it a rich village. This village was much better than Yongfu village. After all, the village was close to the official road and there were many guests coming and going. There were even people selling snacks at the entrance of the village. Therefore, when Gu Yundong's carriage drove into the village, the adults who passed by only looked at it in surprise. Only a few children followed behind happily as if they were joining in the fun. Gu Yundong went to look for the village chief directly. Hence, this Fuguei village was not called for nothing. It was obvious that the village chief was much smarter than Chen Liang. He mentioned a bunch of benefits of the village so that he could raise the accommodation fee. Gu Yundong lived in the village chief's house. It was also a green brick house with many rooms. It was not a problem to vacate one of the rooms for Gu Yundong and her mother. They even included breakfast and dinner. The price was also within her acceptable range. Gu Yundong nodded and planned to go out to pull the carriage to the backyard. Beside the carriage stood a group of children. When they saw her come out, they ran away with a smile. Only one person was still standing there. That person was not a child. He was tall and big. He tilted his head slightly and smiled foolishly at Gu Yundong. However, when Gu Yundong saw the person's face clearly, her pupils constricted and she was stunned on the spot. Chapter 242. Unexpectedly, an old friend, the village chief, also saw that person when he came out. He frowned slightly, but he still said to him patiently, "It's already so late. Hurry up and go home. Don't stay outside." That person chuckled, turned around, and ran. Gu Yundong came back to her senses and asked, "Who was that?" "Oh, him. He came to our village a few months ago." The village chief didn't mind saying this. "I think he escaped from Yongning Prefecture in the past." It said that when he arrived at Qing'an Prefecture, he encountered chaos. His parents, wife, and daughter were gone. He was injured himself, and he became unclear. In the beginning, he was awake for most of the day, but now, as the village chief spoke, he shook his head. For now, it's already good enough if he's awake for 1 day in 2 days. When he first came, he even saw a doctor. The doctor said that he could be cured. "There's a widow in our village. Seeing that he's penniless and sick, she married him and lived with him." The corners of Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. Why? Could they become husband and wife just because she sympathized him? Only a fool would believe that. The widow probably saw that he was good-looking, right? This was just a cover. If I may ask, how old is the widow? The village chief coughed lightly and looked a little strange. About 10 years older than him. Widow Sun's family background is not bad. Her husband has been dead for many years. It's fine to marry again. If this person's illness can be cured, it will be a happy thing. The village chief shook his head. Unfortunately, his condition is getting worse. Widow Sun is also impatient with him now. Look at the clothes he's wearing. Sigh. Gu Yundong realized that the village chief was very nosy and open-minded. She knew that many villages did not allow widows to remarry, such as the old Gu family. Did that man say his wife and daughter were dead? The village chief nodded. Yes, he said it when he was sober. He was quite sad. You seem to be very curious about his affairs. Why? Do you know him? Gu Yundong shook her head decisively. No. The village chief had already led them to the backyard. He instructed his wife, Madame Jiang, who was tidying up the guest room, take care of Miss Gu and Madame Gu. Madame Jiang agreed and asked Gu Yundong with a smile, where are you going and what are you going to do? Gu Yundong answered casually, but she looked a little dazed. She did not expect to meet Fu Ming here. He had become a fool. Although her mother was also ignorant, her mother only did not understand and think about some profound things. As long as others explained it to her in a simple manner, she would be obedient and do it. However, the Fu Ming just now had a silly smile on his face. He was like a person who could not take care of himself. There was also the matter of his parents, wife, and daughter dying. She did not expect that the last time she met her aunt would be that time outside Qing'an Prefecture city. Gu Yundong did not feel guilty at all. Those who wanted to harm others would always be harmed. If it had been her eldest aunt's family back then, she would definitely have taken them away and protected them. Miss Gu, rest for a while. I'll call you again after dinner. Madame Jiang's voice pulled her back to her senses. Gu Yundong put Fu Ming's matter to the back of her mind and smiled at Madame Jiang. All right, thank you, Aunt. Madame Jiang shook her head and left the guest room. However, as soon as she left the house, she immediately ran to her room to look for her man in a hurry, looking mysterious. Chapter 243. Gossip couple. The village chief was happily eating peanuts with the money Gu Yundong had given him. When he saw his wife enter, he only raised his eyes slightly. Have you tidied it up over there? All right, all right. Madame Jiang waved her hand and sat on the brick bed. She reached out and snatched the money from his hand before putting it away. The village chief wanted to say something, but he immediately stopped when she glared at him. Madame Jiang, on the other hand, was in high spirits. She leaned close to his ear and whispered, Do you know what I found? What? Wasn't that Miss Gu the one who kept talking to us just now? Her mother had been standing at the side and didn't speak. At first, I thought she was a mute, but I didn't expect. She pointed at her head. There seems to be a problem here. The village chief sat up straighter in surprise. Really? However, he shook his head slightly. It doesn't look like it. She's dressed neatly and cleanly. When she doesn't speak, she's like a quiet noblewoman. She's not at all the same as that half-wit who just came to our village. Madame Jiang pinched him. Do you still think that she's quite good-looking? You were looking so carefully. The village chief hurriedly shook his head. I didn't. As he spoke, he touched his chin. I was wondering why that little girl kept asking me about Fu Ming. It turns out that her mother is also sick. Madame Jiang also ate a peanut. But it doesn't look as serious as Fu Ming's. I heard her speak like a child. She's quite obedient. When she asked you, her tone was gentle. If you don't pay attention to her expression, she's really like a noblewoman. She dresses well too. Look, you said that too. Then why did you pinch me just now and blame me for looking at her? Madame Jiang glared at him fiercely. I can look but you can't. She's a woman. As a man, you're a lecher if you look at her. The village chief said weakly, She's staying at our house. What if I don't see her clearly and mistake her for someone else? Gu Yundong stood under the window outside and was speechless for a long time. She really did not mean to eavesdrop. She just wanted to come over and ask if Madame Jiang had hot water. She did not expect to hear the two of them talking about her name as soon as she walked over. After all, she was afraid of encountering a shady shop when she was outside, so she listened more. Unexpectedly, This couple was indeed a match made in heaven. They were both so gossipy. Since they did not have any ill intentions, Gu Yundong did not say anything. She only stepped forward slightly and called aunt when she was far away. Other than the gossip factor that had been burning, Madame Jiang was not bad in other aspects. She would ask Gu Yundong and her mother about their tastes and if they were used to the temperature here and if they needed more blankets. However, she would ask Gu Yundong some personal questions from time to time. If she could answer, she would. If she could not, Gu Yundong would smile. This made Madame Jiang even more itchy. Gu Yundong was also speechless. Fortunately, they were only staying for a day. After dinner, she and Madame Yang went to rest. The next morning, Gu Yundong prepared to set off. She led the carriage out and helped Madame Yang in. Unexpectedly, just as she was about to leave, Madame Jiang suddenly called out to her, "Gu girl, I've packed some pickled radishes for you. Don't you like them? Take them and eat slowly on the way." Madame Jiang marinated the radish herself. Her family did not like it, but Gu Yundong liked it very much. Madame Jiang was overjoyed. Gu Yundong quickly went back and saw Madame Jiang walking over with a small jar. She quickly took it. Unexpectedly, Madame Yang's scream suddenly came from the carriage outside. Ah! Chapter 244. Your Uncle Gu Yundong's heart skipped a beat. She retracted her hand and ran out, lifting the curtain of the car. Madame Yang was huddled in the corner of the carriage, looking at a sloppy man squatting opposite her in horror. The man's back was facing the door. Gu Yundong did not even look at him and pulled him down. With a thud, the man fell to the ground with a heavy thud. Gu Yundong ignored him and hurriedly got into the carriage. She hugged Madame Yang and patted her back. "It's all right, mother. It's all right. Don't be afraid. I'm here." Madame Yang took 2 deep breaths and quickly calmed down. "I'm fine, Dong Dong. I'm fine. I'm not worried." Only then did Gu Yundong let go. Seeing that she had a gentle smile on her face, her hair was not messy, and her clothes were neat, Gu Yundong felt slightly relieved. She had just turned around and entered the door. Madame Yang must have just been shocked by the sudden appearance of the man and was not injured. Only then did Gu Yundong jump out of the carriage. At this moment, the village chief and Madame Jiang had also come out. They immediately saw Fu Ming, who was lying on the ground clutching his leg and moaning. Gu Yundong also saw the person clearly and was immediately shocked and furious. She turned around and saw a wooden stick in the corner. She picked it up and was about to hit him. The village chief quickly stopped her. Gu girl, calm down. This is a fool. His mind isn't clear. He probably went up curiously when he saw the carriage. We can't hurt anyone." Madame Jiang put down the small jar. When she saw Madame Yang get out of the carriage, she quickly brought her behind Gu Yundong and said, That's right. Don't be rash. Look, your mother is frightened. You can't hit someone in front of her." Gu Yundong snorted. She even dared to kill someone in front of Madame Yang when she was escaping. Why would she be afraid of hitting Fu Ming, who had a grudge against her? The villagers who heard the commotion next door also came out. Someone went forward to help Fu Ming up and even reprimanded him. "What are you doing here so early in the morning? Why did you run into someone's carriage for no reason? There's nothing to eat in the carriage." However, Fu Ming did not seem to hear the person's words. He had fallen on his leg just now, so the pain was not as intense now. He could finally speak. However, he ignored everyone and said pitifully with a bitter expression, Yundong, I finally met you. You don't know how hard my life has been. Your aunt and cousin are gone. They're gone. I didn't expect to see you here. Take me away." Everyone was stunned. "Idiot, are you not stupid today? Who are you calling Yundong? Why are you talking so strangely?" The village chief was even more surprised. He widened his eyes and looked at Gu Yundong. Madame Jiang asked excitedly, "Gu girl, he seems to know your name. Do you know him?" As expected, there was an inside story. There was something new to hear. Gu Yundong replied coldly, "I don't know him." As she spoke, she was about to help Madame Yang into the carriage again and leave. She was unwilling to look at Fu Ming again, and even stopped taking the small jar of pickled radishes. However, how could Fu Ming let her go? He immediately stood in front of her and said bitterly, "Yundong, I'm your uncle. How can you not recognize me? Look at me. I doted on you when we were at Yongning Prefecture. Now that I'm in trouble, you can't leave me behind." "Uncle." Everyone was stunned. Their gazes immediately focused on Gu Yundong and her mother. They actually had such a relationship. Chapter 245. Targeting Madame Yang. Gu Yundong almost laughed out of anger. She looked at Fu Ming. "Who's my uncle?" "You. My aunt is gone, and you've married someone else. What kind of uncle are you?" Everyone understood. She turned out to be a relative of Fu Ming's late wife. Speaking of which, they were not connected now. However, if this uncle had indeed taken care of her in the past and treated her well, she could not be so heartless as to pretend not to know him. However, the village chief did not think so. He was smart and had interacted with Gu Yundong before. From her attitude towards her mother, he knew that she was not an ungrateful person. Now that her attitude towards Fu Ming was so bad, there might have been a huge conflict in the past. Moreover, Gu Yundong had stayed at his house for a night. How could she be being blocked at the door? Hence, the village chief waved his hand. All right. Why are you people so glib-tongued? How do you know if they were really close in the past? You keep muttering endlessly. You can't even settle your own matters properly, yet you still have the mood to care about other people's matters." Fu Ming panicked when he heard this. He thought that the village chief would stand on his side on account that he was from the same village. He planned to use public opinion to get Gu Yundong to bring him away. He had seen clearly that not only did the Gu family have a carriage, but they were also dressed so well. They were much better than Widow Sunday. They must have met a noble and led a good life. In Fu Ming's impression, Gu Yundong was an easy-to-deal-with young lady. Although he had been set up in the forest outside the Qing'an Prefecture last time, Gu Yundong had mentioned that Uncle Wang wanted to avenge his daughter. He had always thought that there was indeed an Uncle Wang hiding in the dark and working together with Gu Yundong. After all, Master Qian had died from a crossbow bolt shot from afar. Uncle Wang must have taught Gu Yundong. Otherwise, how could this 13-year-old brat be so scheming? "Yundong, you can't leave your uncle alone. Otherwise, what if your aunt comes looking for you in the middle of the night? You don't know how hard my life is now. I can't even sleep well without enough food and clothes." As he spoke, he looked at Madame Yang. "Take me away. I can help you take care of your mother. Look at your mother now. You don't have a father, and no one will want your mother in the future. Although I've injured my brain, I can be cured. At that time, your mother will have someone to rely on and you can also have someone to rely on. Think about it. Isn't that right?" Fu Ming had always known that Madame Yang was quite beautiful. In the past, because she had to work in the Gu family, she did not dress well. Her face was sallow and her fingers were rough. Therefore, he felt that although she was good-looking, she was still not as good-looking as Gu Choyue. However, now that he looked at Madame Yang, who had already cleaned up, he actually felt that Gu Choyue was a little ugly. Compared to Widow Sun, the difference was like heaven and earth. Even if there was something wrong with her brain, she looked good, right? But Gu Yundong was infuriated by his words. Not only was he shameless, but he also dared to have designs on her mother? The surrounding people were stunned when they heard this. Fu Ming had a wife. At this moment, no one noticed Gu Yundong. Hence, she rushed forward and raised the wooden stick in her hand to hit him. Even a toad wants to eat swan meat, it has to see what it is. "I don't even want to look at you. My little aunt will come to look for me in the middle of the night? Let her come. I'll make her soul dissipate. Do you believe me?" Chapter 246. Madame Yang takes action. Gu Yundong was merciless. Everyone was stunned. This young lady was so young, but she was so cruel. Madame Jiang watched her attack excitedly. However, as the village chief's wife, she still stopped her when she saw her fellow villager being beaten up. However, no one could stop the invincible Gu Yundong, especially after what she had said. Just listen to it. She wasn't even afraid of ghosts and deities, but she wanted to destroy little aunt's soul. How much hatred did she have? Fu Ming dodged left and right, screaming in pain as he spoke. "Help! Hurry up and stop her. She's crazy. She's just like her mother. She's crazy. As he spoke, a villager with a hoe came over. He quickly went forward and snatched the hoe from him. He turned around and smashed it on Gu Yundong's head. You don't know what's good for you. Then go to hell. Gu Yundong sneered. She dodged the attack and hit his leg with a stick. Fu Ming gasped in pain, and the hoe hit her even harder. Seeing that someone was about to die, the village chief hurriedly called for everyone to stop him. What are you waiting for? Separate the two of them. Everyone instantly rushed forward. Because Fu Ming's hoe was even more dangerous, the villagers went to catch him first to prevent him from smashing a bloody hole in the little girl's head. At this moment, Gu Yundong hit him hard between his legs. Everyone was speechless. It felt so painful. All the men present subconsciously clamped their legs together and gasped, their faces turning pale. Fu Ming's hoe had also been taken away by the original owner. He could only hold a certain spot and roll on the ground in pain. He was already in such a miserable state, so naturally, no one went to catch him. They even took 2 steps back, feeling that it didn't hurt so much anymore. Gu Yundong was also held back by Madame Jiang and the others. A woman reprimanded her. What's wrong with you, girl? You're so ruthless. You hit someone with a stick and even hit their crotch. How old are you? You're too shameless. F*CK. Where did this B*TCH come from? Gu Yundong suddenly turned her head and glared at that person. The woman was so frightened by the coldness in her eyes that she let go and took a step back. However, when she thought about it, she felt indignant. This was her village. What was going on if she was frightened by a 10-year-old girl? Why are you glaring at me? Am I wrong? No matter what, he's still your elder. Didn't you? The woman didn't dare to say anything else. In the end, she muttered and left. Fu Ming is right. Look at how fierce she is. She's a lunatic. The others did not dare to say anything. Madame Jiang quickly comforted her. All right. It was that Fu Ming who spoke nonsense. He's not clear-headed. Don't mind him. Gu Yundong did not want to argue with him. Wasn't she going to pretend that she did not know him and leave when she saw him this time? But this B*TCH insisted on coming to find trouble. Was it her fault? Gu Yundong was stopped, and no one was beside Fu Ming. Therefore, no one noticed that a figure had passed by with a stone and smashed it towards Fu Ming's head. Who asked you to bully Dong Dong? Ah! Fu Ming grunted and fell silent. Everyone was stunned. Gu Yundong's eyes widened. Mother! She broke free from everyone's grip and quickly went forward to hug Madame Yang. Madame Yang looked at the bloody hole in Fu Ming's head and her mind went blank for a moment. It was only when Gu Yundong came over that she threw the stone away and said, Dong Dong, don't be afraid. Mother will protect you. Chapter 247. My mother was just protecting me. Gu Yundong's eyes were hot as she stroked Madame Yang's back. Yes, I'm not afraid. As she spoke, she glanced at Fu Ming with a cold gaze, but she still stood up calmly and shielded Madame Yang behind her. Everyone finally reacted. The village chief's expression changed drastically as he shouted, What are you waiting for? Hurry up and get a doctor. The two of you, carry Fu Ming in first. The incident happened at the entrance of the village chief's house, so they naturally carried the patient to his house first. Gu Yundong and Madame Yang were also surrounded. With such a thing happening, they definitely could not leave. Although Fu Ming had only been in Fugui village for a few months, he had married widow's son and could be considered a member of Fugui village. The outsider had injured someone from Fugui village, so she had to give an explanation. Moreover, this explanation could not be low. Now, even the village chief and Madame Jiang could not stand on her side. Gu Yundong and Madame Yang were invited back to the village chief's house. The village chief asked someone to watch them and see how Fu Ming was doing before making a decision. The doctor in the village was quickly invited over. He checked Fu Ming. Fortunately, he was still alive. Madame Yang was not very strong, and the stone was about the size of a fist. Although it had a sharp edge, it was not fatal. It was just that there was a lot of blood. It looked very scary. However, he had been unconscious all this time. They did not know what would happen. The doctor applied medicine, performed acupuncture, and bandaged him. It depended on the situation. What if he suddenly died? Madame Jiang heard the doctor's words from outside and quietly went out. She ran to the house where Gu Yundong and her mother were locked up. She said to the villager watching over them, "I came to ask them for the money for the treatment." The villagers let her in. When Madame Jiang entered, she saw that Gu Yundong had a calm expression and still had the energy to patiently comfort the uneasy Madame Yang. She sighed in her heart. This Gu girl was really not an ordinary girl. No wonder she dared to take her mother, who knew nothing, on a long trip alone. Unfortunately, although Madame Yang loved her daughter, she still got into trouble. She quickly walked to the two of them and met Gu Yundong's smiling face. Suddenly, she felt that there was nothing to worry about, so she whispered about Fu Ming's situation. Gu Yundong nodded, indicating that she understood. Madame Jiang looked at Madame Yang again and whispered, "If your mother is like this and you encounter such a thing again in the future, she'll probably be a burden." "My mother is fine, Auntie. She's just protecting me." At this moment, Gu Yundong had completely forgotten the thought of not allowing Madame Yang and the other two to drag her down when she first came to this world. Now, be it Madame Yang or Yun Shu and Yunka, they had already become her family and responsibility. She would protect them. Even if Fu Ming really died today, she would not let anything happen to her mother. Madame Jiang suddenly felt inexplicably envious of Madame Yang. If she became stupid one day and lost her mind, she would bring trouble to her children. Would she have the same treatment as Madame Yang? It was said that there was no filial son in front of a sickbed after a long time. For example, Ah Guang from their village was a famous filial son in this area. However, his mother was sick and could not take care of herself. He became impatient and went home. As she was thinking, she suddenly heard a sharp voice from the door. Madame Jiang's expression changed slightly. She quickly stood up and reminded Gu Yundong, "Widow's son is here." "No. She's not a widow anymore. Aya, she's Fu Ming's current wife. I'll go out and take a look." Chapter 248. Gu Yundong is easy to bully? Madame Jiang went out and saw widow's son walking towards Fu Ming's room impatiently. "What's going on? I heard that my husband was beaten up. His head was split open. Who beat him up? Get someone to come out and talk to me." Widow's son was a shrew, but she only went to the bed to take a look at Fu Ming before quickly looking away. Fu Ming was indeed good-looking. Back then, she had taken a fancy to his appearance and thought that he had fled to this place. He did not have any relatives or friends and did not even have a place to stay. If she was married to him, she would not have parents-in-law. She could still be in charge at home. She was also familiar with the village. Although Fu Ming was silly from time to time, didn't the doctor say that he could be cured? But, cure my ass. No matter how good-looking Fu Ming was, he could not take care of himself for 2 out of 3 days. His clothes were dirty, and his snot was all over his sleeves. No matter how good-looking he was, she was disgusted. Widow's son felt that there was not much hope for him to be cured and did not want to care about him at all. But he was her man after all. Weren't they bullying her by beating him up in the village? "Village chief, I heard that the person who hit her was from another village. This outsider has already bullied our village. You can't let her off. Do you think there's no one in our village? She even dares to hit someone in front of you. Who does she think she is?" The village chief frowned. Madame Jiang walked over and said, "You can't say that. Your Fu Ming was the one who caused this trouble first. She came to our village to stay for the night and was about to leave early in the morning. However, your Fu Ming insisted on stopping her. His words were unpleasant, like a lecture. No wonder she was infuriated." The village chief pulled her back. After all, the person who was injured now was from his own village. As the village chief's wife, how could she stand on the side of outsiders? What would the villagers think of him? Madame Jiang snorted, but she did not say anything else. She just did not like Widow Sunday. In the past, she even wanted to seduce her man. Who did she think she was? The village chief coughed lightly and said, "The person who hit him is now in the West Wing. This matter indeed needs to be discussed properly. However, both sides are indeed at fault. Although I'm the village chief of Fuguei village, I have to be reasonable." Widow's son turned around and left. After leaving the room, she looked around. Seeing that there were 2 familiar villagers guarding outside the door, she walked over in a few steps. The 2 villagers did not stop her. Widow Sun pushed the door open and entered. Gu Yundong looked up and saw Widow Sun's expression. She knew why Fu Ming was so anxious for her to take him away. She was ugly, really. She was especially burly. When she walked, the flesh on her face trembled. Gu Yundong felt that it was a little painful to look at her. No wonder she wanted to find someone like Fu Ming. She probably had no other choice. When Widow Sun arrived, she had heard that the mother and daughter were the ones who hit her man. The younger one was only in her teens, and the older one had a problem with her brain. Fu Ming's head was smashed by that big one, but it didn't look like she had much strength. Otherwise, he would have been smashed to death. Widow Sun smiled in satisfaction when she saw the two of them. All right, it was obvious that these two people were easy to bully. She turned around and was about to close the door. The two villagers looked at each other and quickly said, "Auntie Sun, why don't we ask the village chief to make a decision?" "What decision? This is between our families. They smashed my man. I'll talk to them about compensation. Don't be a busybody. Get lost." She pushed the two of them away abruptly and closed the door. She even deliberately bolted it. Chapter 249. Blackmail. Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes at her. Widow Sun had a scheming smile on her face. Her eyes were narrowed into a line, as if a lump of fat had been pressed into a crease. Widow Sun walked around the mother and daughter. Gu Yundong was not afraid of her, but Madame Yang closed her eyes and hugged her daughter tightly. Widow Sun was even more satisfied when she saw her like that. Seeing that the atmosphere was about right, she brought a stool over from the side and sat opposite the two of them boldly. She slanted her eyes and said, "I heard that you injured my man severely. That won't do. He's the only strong laborer in my family. The doctor said that he'll have to lie in bed for at least half a year with his injuries. Without him in this half a year, how can we live?" Gu Yundong found it funny as she comforted Madame Yang. That was not what Madame Jiang had told her previously. Then how do you want to resolve it? Widow Sun chuckled. Of course you have to pay some money. She knew that this mother-daughter pair had driven a carriage over. Although her family's conditions were not bad, they could not bear to use money to buy a carriage. At most, they would buy 2 caddies of meat to eat. Looking at what the two of them were wearing, although it was not silk or anything, it was still beautiful. Widow Sun was already thinking about how much they should compensate. Let me tell you, this is Fugue Village. The old and young masters of Fugue Village are all united. We definitely won't allow outsiders to bully the villagers. You injured my man so badly today. Without my approval, you won't be able to leave this village. I'm not that unreasonable. As long as you talk nicely and apologize, compensate, and satisfy me, you can leave safely. So, let's calculate now how much silver you have to compensate. Gu Yundong did not say anything and allowed her to speak. Look, my man is a capable man. He's the head of the field and can handle small businesses. Therefore, in half a year, he can at least earn 20 to 30 taels of silver for the family. Let's take the middle amount and treat it as 25 taels. This 25 taels can't be reduced at all. How about this? I think that the carriage will be worth 5 taels of silver. After all, it's already old. Other than this, there's also my man's medicinal money. He has to be nourished after losing so much blood. At least a chicken will be stewed every 5 days. It's at least 50 taels of silver here, don't you think? Gu Yundong smiled. That much? Not much. From the looks of it, you can take out 70 taels of silver, right? Widow Sun's expression became fierce. You almost took my man's life. If this family doesn't have strong labor, it will also take my life. Aren't 2 lives worth 70 taels of silver and a carriage? Or do you not want to leave this village? Madame Yang was shocked by her sudden raised voice. Gu Yundong hurriedly patted her shoulder and looked up into Widow Sun's eyes. Speak softer. You're too noisy. Hey, I'm talking to you nicely. You don't know what's good for you, do you? As Widow Sun spoke, she reached out and pushed Madame Yang's shoulder. Do you believe that I'll beat you up, break your limbs, and throw you into the pond? Gu Yundong's face darkened. She let go of Madame Yang and stood up, pushing Widow Sun away. You little girl, you're courting death. Widow's son rolled up her sleeves and slapped Gu Yundong's face. Chapter 250. Counter Blackmail. Gu Yundong kicked her knee. Widow's son stumbled and fell to her knees. Gu Yundong took the opportunity to cover her mouth to prevent her from calling out to the person at the door. Then, she kicked her twice and placed a dagger on her neck. Widow's son held her breath. She had wanted to grab Gu Yundong's hand but did not dare to move. The dagger was cold and sharp. If she had moved a little, her neck would have bled. At this moment, there was a knock on the door and Madame Jiang's voice. "Widow's son, don't mess around. Come out and talk." "Auntie, we're fine. Well, go out in a while." Gu Yundong spoke first. She let go of Widow's son's mouth and wiped her saliva on her clothes in disdain. She said to Widow's son, who was about to say something, "Don't scream. If you scare me, my hands will tremble uncontrollably." Widow's son wanted to nod, but she did not dare to. She could only say softly, "You don't be rash. Killing is illegal. You will go to prison. Think about it. You're still so young. If you go to the prison, it will be difficult for you to get married in the future." Gu Yundong nodded seriously. "Isn't that so? So eat this." Before Widow's son could understand what she was saying, she felt as if something had been stuffed into her mouth. Gu Yundong's knife approached and she lifted her chin. She swallowed it. Then, her eyes widened. What did you feed me?" "Poison my lisu." Omnipotent medicine. Gu Yundong had already moved the dagger away. Widow's son hurriedly bent down and grabbed her throat. She vomited for a long time, but her face was red and she could not vomit. She looked at Gu Yundong with reddened eyes. "You want to kill me?" "Of course not. I have no grudge against you. I was just frightened by you. I was afraid that the villagers would not let us leave, so I could only poison you first and treat you as a hostage. When we leave, I will naturally tell you the way to detoxify the poison." Widow's son opened her mouth and wanted to call the people outside, but she was afraid of death. What if she angered this person and this person didn't tell her how to detoxify the poison? Gu Yundong looked at her expression and confirmed that she was a person who was very afraid of death. Previously, when Chong Fu was fed with my Li Su, he would at least be suspicious. It took her a few scares to bend him. However, when she said that it was poison, the one in front of her immediately believed her without any doubt. Widow's son glared at Gu Yundong angrily. "I didn't expect you to be so vicious at such a young age. We're outside. If we're not vicious, wouldn't we be bullied by you just like before?" Gu Yundong squatted in front of her. "Now, it's time to talk about my compensation." What compensation do you want?" "Look, we were supposed to leave early in the morning, but your man stopped us and delayed us. My time is very precious. You have to compensate me. He even went crazy and wanted to smash me to death with a hoe. I'm still so frightened that my heart is beating wildly. You have to compensate me. Also, you threatened and pushed my mother just now, scaring her. You must compensate for that too. I'm kind-hearted and don't want much. Just take out all the silver on you." She couldn't possibly go to Widow's son's house. She didn't have the time. Widow's son did not want to give it to her, but she was poisoned. When Gu Yundong said that the poison would act up in half an hour, she hurriedly took out the silver from her sleeve. Gu Yundong frowned and looked at the 5 taels of silver in her hand. "What else?" "No, that's all." "I'll get it right away." 1. Chapter 251. Fu Ming wakes up. Gu Yundong saw her sitting on the ground, pressing down on the fat on her stomach. She took off her shoes with some difficulty and took out a banknote worth 5 taels from under her shoes and handed it over. Gu Yundong was speechless. Damn it, her eyes hurt from the smoke. Madame Yong quickly went forward and covered her nose. "Dong Dong, come here. She's releasing poison." Gu Yundong felt that her mother's words were very vivid. She immediately waved her hand. "Keep it well. I don't want it. It was too smelly." There was nowhere to put it. Widow's son hurriedly stuffed the banknotes back into her shoes and put them on. Gu Yundong frowned. She had spent so much effort and wasted one of her My Lisu pills, but she had only received 5 taels of silver. Widow's son glanced at her. You can give me the antidote now, right? What are you thinking about? Gu Yundong snorted. Get up. Go out and tell the others to let us go. When we leave safely, we will naturally tell you the way to detoxify the poison. Widow Sun was angry, but she did not dare to say anything. She did not know if it was a psychological effect. She felt that her body was in so much pain. Could it be that there would be other pain before the poison acted up? She did not dare to delay and hurriedly got up to open the door. Just as the two people at the door were wondering why there was no movement inside, they saw Widow Sun come out with a dark expression. The village chief and Madame Jiang were also outside. Seeing her come out, Madame Jiang hurriedly entered the house to take a look. Gu Yundong was bringing Madame Jiang out. Seeing that the two of them were fine, she heaved a sigh of relief. On the other side, the village chief was lecturing Widow Sunday. I've already said that I'll handle this matter. Why are you adding to the mess? Since you don't care about me as the village chief, don't look for me in the future. Widow Sun quickly smiled and said, No. I was just thinking that this is a small matter. I'm looking for them to discuss how to resolve it. Look, it's settled now. We've already agreed. Village chief, quickly let them go. I heard that they're in a hurry. The village chief. What the hell? Madame Jiang was speechless. Was Widow Sun trying to seduce her man again? She was smiling so fawningly. She glared at Widow Sun and hurriedly asked Gu Yundong, She didn't bully you? Gu Yundong shook his head. No, Auntie Sun is still very reasonable. We told her what happened and apologized. She especially understood that it was not easy for us two weak women. She knew that we have urgent matters to attend to, so she said that she would explain to you personally and not pursue the matter. Widow Sun could not help but tremble. Apologize? Weak women? This brat was too good at acting. Madame Jiang had a complicated expression. Was Widow Sun a reasonable person? Gu Yundong nodded affirmatively. That's right. It's already been half an hour. If we don't leave now, we won't be able to make it to the next town. Madame Jiang was puzzled. They had delayed more than half an hour, right? However, when Widow Sun heard that, she suddenly became anxious. That's right. Two women can't sleep in the wilderness. It's not safe. Let them hurry up. Otherwise, if the people outside know, they will think that our village is bullying them and won't let them go. The village chief felt like he had seen a ghost. Why did he feel like he didn't know Widow Sun? But Fu Ming isn't awake yet. As a victim, he couldn't possibly not know anything, right? As soon as he finished speaking, a villager shouted, He's awake. Fu Ming is awake. Village chief, go and take a look. Chapter 252. Departure. The village chief hurriedly went in to take a look. The others also went over one after another. Gu Yundong did not really want to go, but Madame Jiang dragged her there. There were 2 thick layers of bandages on Fu Ming's forehead. At this moment, he opened his eyes and looked at the person standing by the bed. In the end, her gaze landed on Widow Sunday. Widow Sun frowned. This bastard had better not cause trouble at this time and not let the Gu family's mother and daughter leave. She still had to detoxify the poison. In the next moment, Fu Ming suddenly curled his fingers and chuckled. Wife, I'm hungry. Everyone saw that he had become a fool again. They couldn't ask for his opinion now, so Widow Sun had the final say. Since she did not mind and there was nothing wrong with Fu Ming, they could not hold on to 2 weak women. Besides, it was indeed Fu Ming who provoked her first. She was about to leave, but he insisted on stopping her and saying something inappropriate. The villagers left one after another. Widow Sun was very anxious. She asked Gu Yundong, You guys should leave quickly too. All right, we're leaving soon. They had indeed wasted a lot of time. Today, they were going to speed up again. Seeing that there was no problem, Madame Jiang quickly carried the small jar out to her. Here, take it. If you pass by here again in the future, I'll marinate another jar for you. It won't take much effort. Thank you, Aunt. Gu Yundong had left a small bag of white sugar in the house. The village chief and Madame Jiang treated them well. Even if such a thing happened, they did not speak ill of them. Madame Jiang even tipped them off and helped them criticize Widow Sunday. White sugar was indeed expensive outside, but this was the most she had now. It was not shabby to give it away. Widow Sun was extremely anxious. Why was he still talking at a time like this? Was there no end to it? Madame Jiang glanced at her suspiciously, but Gu Yundong smiled and got into the carriage. Widow Sun had been following beside the carriage. When Madame Jiang could no longer see them, she asked, "Where's the antidote? Do you think I'm stupid to give it to you without leaving the village?" Gu Yundong sat on the shaft of the carriage and said slowly, "Wait here for half an hour. When the time comes, I'll write a method to detoxify the poison and place it under the second tree at the entrance of the village. I'll press it with a rock." "But I can't read." "Can't you find someone you know to read to you? Anyway, it doesn't matter if others see the antidote." Widow Sun could only stop in her tracks. "You have to keep your word." "Of course. You've already let me go. Wouldn't I be courting death if I harmed your life again?" Gu Yundong shook the reins and the carriage immediately sped up. Widow Sun paced back and forth for a while before she could not take it anymore. She could not wait for more than half an hour. It did not take long for her to catch up. When she reached the village entrance and found the second tree, she saw a note. Widow Sun quickly took it out and rushed to the village chief's house. Madame Jiang was tidying up the guest room when she saw the bag of white sugar. She took it out to study it with the village chief. "What the hell is this?" "I don't know." Madame Jiang shook her head, then suddenly slapped her head. "By the way, there was a small note under it at that time. Take a look at what was written on it." The village chief quickly took it and read with narrowed eyes, "White sugar. You can make sugar water or use it as a seasoning to make sweet food. Thank you for your hospitality." Madame Jiang was delighted. "White sugar. The Gu family's girl gave us white sugar? It's so white. It must be very expensive." Before she could finish speaking, Widow Sun's noisy voice came from the door. Madame Jiang hurriedly put away the white sugar and covered it under the blanket. The next moment, she saw her barge in. The village chief's expression was ugly. "What do you want now?" Chapter 253. Completely crippled Widow Sun was panting. She did not care about his expression and hurriedly took out the paper and handed it over. "Quick, help me see what's written on it." The village chief took it impatiently. "Ha," he said. The words on it were written with charcoal, just like the note Madame Jiang had brought just now. He raised his head and glanced at Widow Sun strangely. The latter was extremely anxious. "Why are you looking at me? Hurry up and read it. Can't you be a little nicer when you're begging?" The village chief snorted and began to read the words on it. "My Lisu. It's a candy. It tastes great. Take it as a snack and drink more water, and it will keep you in good health. You have to admit that you're too old. If you're sick in the head, treat it quickly. See you again." He chuckled. "Who wrote this? It's quite poetic." Widow Sun's face was ashen, and her fingers were trembling. However, she still asked unwillingly, "That's all? Is there nothing else?" "That's it. B*TCH, big B*TCH, little B*TCH, you actually lied to me. You actually lied to me." Widow Sun snatched the paper from the village chief's hand and tore it into pieces. She was still angry and stomped on it a few more times, almost creating a hole in the village chief's soil. The next moment, she suddenly raised her head and asked with a grimace, "Who are that mother and daughter surnamed Gu? Where do they live? Where are they going?" The village chief frowned. "How would I know? How could you not know?" Madame Jiang said angrily, "Be reasonable. She's only here to stay for the night. She left immediately after the night. Why would she tell us these things?" "Ah!" Widow Sun screamed, turned around and ran out. She had to ask Fu Ming. Fu Ming must know where the mother and daughter lived in Yongning village. He must know. Widow Sun waited for Fu Ming to wake up, but after that, Fu Ming never woke up again. Later on, Widow Sun found out that he was not even a man. She was so angry that she smashed more than half of the pots and pans in the kitchen. That day, the doctor was only in a hurry to help Fu Ming look at the wound on his head. At that time, the blood flow was so shocking that even the surrounding people forgot that he had been hit by Gu Yundong in the crotch. When Fu Ming woke up, he became a fool again. He only felt uncomfortable down there and didn't know how to say it. As a result, he delayed the treatment and became a cripple in some aspect. Widow Sun couldn't take it anymore and chased Fu Ming out. However, even though Fu Ming was retarded, he still remembered Widow Sun's house. He could find it himself. He even became irritable. If Widow Sun chased him away again, he would hit her. Then, Widow Sun starved him and kept him cold. She tried to trick him into leaving Fuguei village. Then, Fu Ming came back and continued to hit her. The two of them repeated this cycle, and the days became more and more difficult. Gu Yundong left Fuguei village in a good mood. Madame Yang also smiled and came out to sit on the shaft of the carriage. She held her hand and said, "Dong Dong is so awesome. Mother is also powerful." Gu Yundong turned her head. "But don't rush to the bad guys in the future." Fu Ming fell to the ground and did not have the ability to fight back. If you encounter someone who fights back, Mother will be injured. Madame Yang didn't know if she understood, but she tilted her head and suddenly pointed into the distance. "We've been there before." Gu Yundong followed her finger and saw that she had been here before. Back then, they had also passed by here when they were pulling the pushcart from Qing'an Prefecture to Xuanhe Prefecture. After walking for another 5 to 6 days, the carriage finally arrived at Qing'an Prefecture. Chapter 254. Dr. Song is here. The last time they came to Qing'an Prefecture, they did not enter the city gate. This time he did. But the prefectural city here was much more desolate than the Xuanhe Prefecture. It couldn't be helped. It hadn't been long since the chaos last year. It was said that not only was the prefecture magistrate killed in the Qing'an Prefecture, but many of the wealthy and influential people in the city had also become fat meat for those bandits. They directly barged into other people's residences to kill and snatch. The civilians were even more in trouble. Those who dodged quickly escaped, but those who did not could only be killed when they encountered those inhumane bandits. The refugees only snatched things, but it was also easy to get into conflicts. Many of them were killed or injured. That chaos had caused the Qing'an Prefecture to suffer heavy losses. Gu Yundong led the carriage all the way and saw that many shops on the street had been destroyed and had to be renovated. There were many stalls along the way. Gu Yundong bought some food for Madame Yang and inquired about the location of Huimin Medical Center. Huimin Medical Center seemed to be quite famous. Soon, someone pointed ahead and said, "Walk to the end here and turn left. You'll reach it after walking for a while." Gu Yundong thanked him and sped up. She did not know if Dr. Song was in Qing'an Prefecture. She hoped that he had already arrived and that he had not left. When they arrived at Huimin Medical Center, Gu Yundong saw that there were many people waiting outside. A waiter saw her and quickly asked her to park the carriage at the side before queuing up. Gu Yundong saw that her carriage was blocking the way, so she quickly led it to the side and parked it. Then, she brought Madame Yang to the shop assistant's side. "Little brother, I'm looking for the shopkeeper of your medical center." The waiter was stunned for a moment. He looked at Gu Yundong, who was half a head shorter than him. "Little brother?" The shop assistant tried his best to ignore the way she addressed him. He coughed lightly and said, "Who are you? Why are you looking for our shopkeeper?" "I came from the Xuanhe Prefecture. Dr. He introduced me." As he spoke, Gu Yundong took out a letter from his sleeve. "This is Dr. He's personal letter." The shop assistant knew that there was a Dr. He in the Xuanhe Prefecture. He had been here last time. He hurriedly led Gu Yundong inside. "Wait here for a while. I'll go look for the shopkeeper." With that, he took Gu Yundong's letter and ran to the backyard. After a while, the shop assistant came out. "Our shopkeeper invites you in. Follow me." Gu Yundong brought Madame Yang and followed the shop assistant into the backyard. The manager of Huimin Medical Center was a middle-aged man in his 40s. He was holding a herb in the backyard and talking to a doctor. Seeing them come over, the shopkeeper asked the doctor to go to the front hall first. "I've read Dr. He's letter. I know why you're here." The shopkeeper let them sit. He glanced at Madame Yang and asked, "The patient is this madam, right?" Madame Yang hid slightly behind. Dr. He's letter was not very detailed. After all, he was not very familiar with Gu Yundong. He only asked the shopkeeper to help if he could. It would be good if he could fulfill Miss Gus' filial piety. However, if Dr. Song did not agree, he could not force him. The shopkeeper was just a middleman and a matchmaker. Yes. Gu Yundong held Madame Yang's hand and asked anxiously, "Is Dr. Song in Qing'an Prefecture?" The shopkeeper saw her subtle movements and sighed in his heart. Dr. Song is in Qing'an Prefecture, but what? Gu Yundong quickly asked. Chapter 255. Familiar child, the shopkeeper said, "It's just that I don't know where he is now." Seeing Gu Yundong frown, he said, "He went to treat a patient. I heard that he's an important patient. I can't ask where he lives." Gu Yundong heaved a sigh of relief. It was fine as long as he was still in Qing'an Prefecture. When will he be back? That's hard to say. The shopkeeper shook his head. Dr. Song arrived the afternoon before yesterday. He just came to get some medicine and left. He didn't even have the time to take a break or drink a cup of tea. He hasn't come back since the afternoon before yesterday. Gu Yundong frowned. So long? But don't worry. Dr. Song's things are still in Huimin Medical Center. He will definitely come again. Gu Yundong pursed his lips. It seemed that she could only wait. She looked up at the shopkeeper, pursed her lips, and took out a bag of white sugar from her bag. "Thank you for telling me this, Shopkeeper Chao. Please accept this as a thank you gift." Shopkeeper Chao quickly refused. "I can't accept this. I just read Dr. He's letter and said a few words." "You?" Halfway through his sentence, he suddenly stopped and his gaze landed on the white sugar in the bag. He took it and widened his eyes to carefully identify it. Was it really sugar? Shopkeeper Chao could be considered experienced and knowledgeable. He knew what was the most popular thing in the capital recently. It was the white sugar made by this imperial court. It was said that the influential families in the capital had gone crazy fighting for it. Nowadays, this thing did not only mean that you were rich, but it also represented your status. This was because this thing was rare. Those young masters and young ladies in the capital were all competitive. Today, at the banquet, those who were admiring the flowers and serving pastries had to say that the cake was made of rare white sugar. The sweeter it was, the more it meant that your family was powerful. The owner of Huimin Medical Center had also bought some. However, there were many Huimin Medical Centers in Dajiang. If each family got a little, they wouldn't even have a chance to feel the sweetness. Shopkeeper Chao had kept the white sugar very well, but he did not expect this girl to take out a bag with one hand. There should be at least 2 caddies inside, right? If this girl gave him money, he really wouldn't accept it. But sugar, Shopkeeper Chao was in a dilemma. Gu Yundong naturally saw the change in his expression, so she added, "Actually, I still want to ask Shopkeeper Chao for a favor. I'll go to the inn next door to get a room later. If Dr. Song comes back, please ask the staff in the medical center to inform me immediately. What do you think?" "Sure, of course." Yes, now he could accept the white candy in peace. However, in the next moment, he suddenly thought of something and hurriedly said, "Are you planning to stay in the inn next door? Then you have to hurry. That inn's business is very good. If you go late, there won't be any good rooms." Gu Yundong hurriedly thanked him and left with Madame Yang. She was quite lucky. When she booked the room, there was only one upper room left. Then there was a large bunk. Gu Yundong quickly handed over the money. Just as it was settled, someone asked about the room. She heaved a sigh of relief and brought Madame Yang upstairs with the waiter. As soon as she entered the room, she put down her bag and asked Madame Yang to wait for her here. She went to the medical center again and told Shopkeeper Chao her room number. At the same time, she brought the carriage to the stable of the inn. Then, she walked back to the hall and asked the waiter for a meal to send to her room. Unexpectedly, as soon as she entered, she saw a familiar child. Chapter 256. Where are you taking my brother? Gu Yundong could not help but take a few more glances, but a tall and thin man carrying the child glared at her fiercely. "What are you looking at?" Then, he hurried away. In that moment, Gu Yundong suddenly remembered where she had seen this child before. Wasn't it one of the 2 fair and chubby children who lived next door to the farmhouse's courtyard when they were escaping? Coincidentally, this was the little boy Gu Yundong had seen before. When she was escaping from the wilderness, the children she saw were all sallow, thin, and on the verge of death. Therefore, The two pink children were too conspicuous and left an impression in her mind. She remembered that the person who had brought the children back then was the man who was known as Uncle Gao. One look at their clothes and she knew that they were rich. But now, the child was wearing a burlap shirt, and so was the tall and thin man. Moreover, his expression was gloomy, as if he was flustered and uneasy. When he saw her take a few more glances, he immediately became fierce and quickened his footsteps. This was very wrong. If that child's family became poor, he wouldn't be able to afford to wear good clothes, but his face was still chubby, fair and tender. It was obvious that he had been pampered since he was young. Moreover, although the child was sleeping with his eyes closed, there were obvious tears on his face. Gu Yundong's expression turned cold. Seeing the man walk out of the inn, she immediately ran over and blocked him. "Who are you? Where are you taking my brother?" The man was stunned and his expression changed. "What did you say? Who's your brother?" "This is my son." "Son? Doesn't look like it at all." "Nonsense. My younger brother clearly followed elder brother Gao out to look for me. When did he become your son?" For the sake of caution, Gu Yundong added, "If this person was really this child's father, he would definitely know brother Gao." "What brother Gao? Get lost." As the man spoke, he winked to the side. Soon, a few people surrounded them. Very good, it was confirmed that they were human traffickers, and there were accomplices. After all, Gu Yundong knew the child and had killed animals together. Brother Gao had even given her a bag of steamed buns and pancakes. When she encountered such a thing, she had to interfere. Gu Yundong suddenly stepped forward and took the initiative. She grabbed his little finger and pulled it out. When he let go of the child in pain, she instantly snatched the child and took a few steps back. Then she shouted at the onlookers, "This is a baby stealer. Everyone, catch him quickly." The man's expression changed drastically as he shouted in a low voice, "You're the wild girl who came from nowhere. That's my son. Return the child to me. Do you hear me? Everyone, help me. I don't know who instructed this girl to take my son away." As he spoke, the man's accomplices immediately swarmed forward. "Miss, you're too young. How can you do such a thing?" "That's right. Hurry up and return the child to him. Didn't you see that the father and son are both wearing the same clothes? When the time comes, apologize properly. No one will blame you. Don't do such a thing next time. Look at the way you're carrying the child. It's pitiful. Don't hurt the child." As he spoke, 3 to 4 people moved to snatch the child. When the onlookers heard this, they were a little hesitant. The 3 of them all said the same. Everyone stood on the side of the tall and thin man. The others naturally thought that the 2 of them were father and son. Chapter 257. Captured. Gu Yundong frowned and kicked a middle-aged woman who had come to snatch the child away. The other 3 were stunned. The tall and thin man's face flashed with ruthlessness. He gave them a look and the 3 of them came over at the same time. Some held her hand, some hugged the child, some pulled her hair, and some pinched her arm. But before these people could touch her, Gu Yundong nimbly bumped into the weakest-looking person and kicked him between his legs. That person immediately bent down in pain. Gu Yundong flashed past him and ran into the inn. She said to the people present who still did not understand, "These people are all in cahoots. They're the ones who are kidnapping. If you don't believe me, report it to the officials. I'll wait in this inn for the officials to arrest me." The waiter in the inn suddenly came back to his senses. This girl was their guest and had brought her mother, who seemed to be a little silly. From her gentle and polite words, it was obvious that she was knowledgeable. She asked him to help take care of her mother, and she was exceptionally friendly with a smile. She even tipped him a tael of silver. Therefore, he was definitely on Gu Yundong's side. He immediately reached out to block Gu Yundong and said to the few people who had run up to snatch the child, "This lady is staying here. But you're not a guest of our inn, right? You're not here to eat, so how did you get out of my inn?" The man's expression changed drastically. He took a small step back and said, I brought the child to borrow the toilet." In fact, he had sneaked in from the backyard behind a guest's carriage when no one was paying attention and took the opportunity to leave through the front door. When the onlookers heard Gu Yundong's words, they almost leaned towards her. If she was really a kidnapper, Would she dare to speak so confidently about reporting to the officials? After hearing the waiter's words, she was even more convinced that these people were not good people. After all, they knew the waiter. He couldn't be a bad person, right? The few kidnappers felt that something was amiss. Everyone looked at them strangely. Knowing that the situation was hopeless, and the child could not be snatched back, they understood each other and turned to leave. However, that tall and thin man was a thorn in everyone's side. How could he leave? He was quickly stopped. Still, his accomplices saw that the situation was not good and wanted to hide in the crowd and leave in several different directions. Gu Yundong's eyes turned sharp. And those few are his accomplices. I saw them signaling with their eyes. As she spoke, she saw a tea set on the table beside her. She handed the child to the waiter and smashed the teacups on their heads. As the teacup fell to the ground, the few people were instantly exposed and caught by the surrounding commoners. The few of them immediately struggled. Let go of me. I just thought that you were snatching someone's child. Who's in cahoots? Me too. I don't know them. Gu Yundong sneered. Since you're innocent, wait here for the officials to come. Anyway, you're so enthusiastic. You definitely don't mind being witnesses. I still have something urgent to do, the woman hurriedly said. I still have to go home and cook for my husband. If he doesn't see me when he comes back, he'll be anxious. That's easy. Where is your house? I'll pay someone to send a message to your house. If what you say is true, I'll even treat your husband to a meal here. How about that? 111. Now that she could not say it, everyone believed that Gu Yundong was a good person. Chapter 258. Awake, Gu Yundong looked down at the child in the waiter's arms. She took the child and said to the waiter, "Please help me find a doctor from the Huimin Medical Center next door. I'm worried that this child has been drugged by them." The waiter nodded repeatedly and turned to run. "I'll go now." The shopkeeper, who had been silent all this while, also said, "Till get someone to find the officials." "Miss, don't worry. Our Qing'an Prefecture's officials are not bad." Of course, they were not bad. Ever since the last chaos, there had been a huge change in the Qing'an Prefecture. In addition, the new emperor had ascended the throne with sharp methods. He had directly sent a trusted prefecture magistrate over, and even the governance of the officials below had become much clearer. Gu Yundong thanked him, and the waiter happened to invite a doctor over. Perhaps the doctor next door had also heard the commotion and knew that the matter had started. As soon as he came over, he took the child over and looked at him carefully. After a long while, he heaved a sigh of relief and said, "He's fine." He was knocked unconscious. As he spoke, he took a silver needle and pricked him slightly. Soon, the child frowned and groaned. He slowly opened his eyes. He looked around in confusion. "Who are you?" Gu Yundong asked him. "Do you still remember what happened before you fell asleep?" "What happened before?" The little boy scratched his head. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something and sat up straight. "Bad people were trying to catch me." Gu Yundong pointed at the tall and thin man. "Was that him?" When the child saw this, he immediately hid in Gu Yundong's direction. "It's him. He took me away when my sister Liang was buying me candy. He didn't care when I cried and even hit me." As he spoke, his body could not help but tremble violently. When everyone heard this, they were certain that this man was a kidnapper. The few people holding him stared at him tightly to prevent him from escaping. The waiter said to the child, "You've met a kidnapper. Fortunately, this girl saw that something was wrong and saved you. Otherwise, you wouldn't know where you would be sold." The child was stunned. When he looked at Gu Yundong again, his eyes sparkled. "Thank you, sister." "You're welcome." Gu Yundong stroked his head. He seemed to be about the same age as Yunshu. Although it had only been more than 10 days since she left Yongfu village, she still missed him and Yunka. "Your sister Liang must be very anxious when she saw that you were gone. Where did you buy candy and split up?" The child shook his head. "I don't know either. I just remember." Before he could finish speaking, a commotion came from outside the inn. A few officials followed closely behind, as well as a maidservant who looked to be no more than 15 or 16 years old. When the maidservant saw the child, She immediately cried tears of joy. "Young master. It's really you. Young master, this is great. Sister Liang." The child hurriedly called out to her, but he remained in Gu Yundong's arms. Liang Jing wiped her face. As soon as she realized that the child was gone, she searched nearby, but she couldn't find him at all. She quickly went to the government office to report the case. Fortunately, the government office was not far away. Unexpectedly, she happened to encounter someone who came over to report a matter. A child was saved and they asked the sheriff to go over and take a look. When Liang Jing heard that he seemed to be her young master, she hurriedly followed him. Thank goodness the young master was fine and appeared in front of her safely. Chapter 259. Dr. Song is back. The shopkeeper had already told the official what had happened in detail. Liang Jing heard it clearly and was immediately grateful to Gu Yundong. Tears welled up in her eyes. "Miss, thank you so much. If it weren't for you, I don't know what would have happened to my young master. I could have only apologized with my life. You're my benefactor. I'll kowtow to you." Gu Yundong was shocked and quickly reached out to pull her back. "Don't. I'll help anyone when I see injustice. If you're grateful to me, pay the doctor's consultation fee." Liang Jing was stunned and did not know whether to laugh or cry. She quickly took out her money bag. Yes, of course. She paid the doctor before thanking Gu Yundong again and again. The leader of the officers also laughed out loud. "Miss, you're right. When you see injustice on the road, you have a chivalrous heart. This time, not only does this child's family have to thank you, but we also have to thank you. You don't know, a few days ago, on the night of the Lantern Festival, kidnappers appeared to specialize in abducting children. These few days, we've been looking for them. We've finally found these bastards." As he spoke, the officer kicked the tall and thin man hard. "Bastard, you still dare to glare at me." Previously, someone reported that the kidnapper had a mole on his nose. "This person is you, right? Come back to the office with us and tell us where the other children are. Let's go." The official waved his hand. "And the few of you, don't shout that you're innocent. We'll know if you're innocent when you go to the government office. Take them away." Then he said to Gu Yundong, "Miss, are you coming too?" Gu Yundong thought about how she still had to wait for Dr. Song, and Madame Yang was alone upstairs. How could she leave in peace? She knew that it would take a lot of time for witnesses to record their statements in the modern world, let alone here. They would probably have to argue repeatedly. After thinking for a moment, she said to the officer, "I'm really sorry. I can't leave this place now. The waiter saw what happened just now. Can I ask him to make a trip on my behalf? You can ask him if there are any details you need to know. I'm staying in this inn. If there's anything that needs my help, I'll go over." The officer saw that she was in a difficult position and thought about it. He felt that it was not a big problem, so he nodded. "All right." Then, he left with the kidnappers. As the victim, the child was also carried by Liang Jing. The crowd gradually dispersed, but there were still many people who nodded at Gu Yundong. Gu Yundong could not wait to go upstairs. She pushed open the door and saw Madame Yang sitting obediently in front of the table, staring at the puzzle on the table. Gu Yundong had unintentionally found it in her storage. She did not know when she had put it in, but it was a very simple wooden jigsaw puzzle. The image was of two cute little animals. She saw that Madame Yang was bored sometimes when she was alone in the carriage, so she took it out for her to play with. Madame Yang liked it very much. When she got it, she was overjoyed. She actually knew how to assemble the pieces, but she still couldn't bear to let it go. She enjoyed doing it repeatedly. When she saw Gu Yundong enter, she turned around and smiled at her. "Dong Dong, I heard that it was so lively downstairs. It was so noisy. But I obediently didn't open the door or go out to take a look. Look at how I worked." The time was short again. Gu Yundong went forward to take a look and immediately praised, "Mother is getting better and better. Yes, I'll play a few more times. When I get home, I'll be able to teach us Shu and Kiki." When the time came, they would think that their mother was very powerful. It was rare for Gu Yundong to see Madame Yang with such a sense of accomplishment. She smiled and nodded. After dinner, she took Madame Yang to rest. The next morning, Gu Yundong had just packed up and was about to go to Huimin Medical Center when there was a knock on the door. She opened the door and saw that it was the staff of the medical center. The shop assistant said to her happily, "Miss Gu, Dr. Song is back." Chapter 260. Gao Feng's visit. Gu Yundong was stunned, and her face lit up with joy. "Really, bring us there." She turned around and wanted to call out to Madame Yang, who was still sleeping on the bed. Madame Yang usually woke up earlier than her, but for some reason, she woke up from a nightmare in the middle of the night yesterday. She called out to Gu Dajiang, and it was almost dawn before she fell asleep again. The shop assistant hurriedly said, "Miss Gu, our shopkeeper said that Dr. Song seemed to have come back to get the medicine. I don't know when he will leave. If we don't see him quickly, I'm afraid we won't be able to see him again." Gu Yundong could not be bothered to wake up Madame Yang. She had to see Dr. Song first and get the man to agree to treat her mother before bringing Madame Yang over. Hence, she nodded. "All right, I'll go over now." The shop assistant went downstairs and Gu Yundong went out to close the door. She happened to see the waiter coming over and asked him to help watch over here. If her mother woke up, he would tell her mother that she had gone out and would be back soon. Then, she hurried to Huimin Medical Center. Not long after she left, Gao Feng carried by Yang in. "This is the inn?" The little thing in his arms nodded vigorously. Yes. This is the place." Gao Feng went to ask the shopkeeper, "Is the girl who saved this child yesterday here?" The shopkeeper did not notice and called the waiter over. Coincidentally, the waiter did not see the shop assistant coming to look for Gu Yundong. He did not know where she had gone. Still, that girl said that she would be back soon. Her mother is still in her room. Gao Feng raised his head and looked in the direction of the second floor. After some thought, he found a seat and sat down. "Then let's wait here. Since she would be back soon, it shouldn't be long." Bai Yang was also very regretful. "Why isn't Sister Gu here? I was so frightened yesterday that I didn't thank her properly." Gao Feng lowered his eyes and retracted his coldness. He patted his head gently. "It's fine. It won't be too late to thank her when we see her later." The two of them ordered some food and waited for Gu Yundong to return. Meanwhile, Gu Yundong was following shopkeeper Chao to the backyard. "Dr. Song is looking for herbs in the pharmacy in the backyard. I'll go in and ask him later. Wait outside." After all, he had accepted a bag of white sugar. Shopkeeper Chao was still very friendly. Gu Yundong nodded and stopped at the entrance of the pharmacy. Shopkeeper Chao went in alone and saw Dr. Song frowning as he looked at the herbs in his hand. "Dr. Song, there's a girl outside who came all the way from the Shuanhe Prefecture to look for you. She wants you to treat her mother." Song Dajiang lowered his head as if he did not see or hear Shopkeeper Chao. He only muttered something. Shopkeeper Chao could not help but swallow his saliva. He tried again and said, "Dr. Song? That girl is outside. Her mother's condition is quite serious. I pity her filial piety." Aren't you annoying? Why should I treat her mother? Can't you see that I'm annoyed? Get lost." Song Dajiang raised his head. He was fierce and irritable. His eyes were a little bloodshot, and he looked like he had not slept well for the past 2 days. Shopkeeper Chao was scolded badly. He wiped his face and was about to leave. However, after all, he had accepted the girl's sugar. Before he left, he still said, "That girl was introduced by Dr. He from the Shuanhe Prefecture. There's also a handwritten letter from Dr. He." Chapter 261. No treating. What's great about Dr. He's introduction? Do I have to treat her just because he introduced her? Do you think I have nothing better to do? I haven't settled my own matters. No matter what illness you have, get lost and don't disturb me. Song Dajiang was furious. He raised his hand, grabbed a pen from the table beside him, and threw it. Shopkeeper Chao immediately did not dare to say anything else. He hurriedly left with his face covered in dust. He looked at Gu Yundong, who was standing at the door, and shook his head with a sigh. "Did you hear that? Let's go." Song Dajiang's voice was so loud that Gu Yundong naturally heard him clearly. She could not help but frown fiercely. Her mother's illness could not be delayed. She immediately wanted to go in herself. Shopkeeper Chao quickly stopped her. Don't go. Dr. Song has just returned from his important patient's house. His eyes are red. It seems that he has spent a lot of effort on the patient. He's currently thinking about the prescription and has a bad temper. At this time, he'll only be more annoyed no matter what you say. It's better to wait and think of another way. Song Dajiang was not a doctor of Huimin Medical Center. He was a distinguished guest of their boss. This guy was just a shopkeeper of a small branch. He did not dare to offend him or order him around. Gu Yundong could only stop, but she was a little anxious. Shopkeeper Chao brought her to the front hall and waited a little longer. Later, when Dr. Song was in a better mood, he might treat her mother. Gu Yundong simply sat in a corner of the clinic, but her eyes were fixed on the exit of the backyard, afraid that Dr. Song would leave again. How could she get him to agree? Should she just kidnap him? No, what if this old man got angry and stabbed her mother to death with a needle? Money. Dr. Song didn't seem to lack money. White sugar. It could be used. And, as a doctor, what attracted him the most were probably medical skills and herbs. It was a pity that she did not know medicine. As for medicinal herbs, Gu Yundong's eyes were empty. Actually, she was rummaging through the spatial storage. After she dug out a pile of Western medicine, she sighed secretly. As she was thinking, Dr. Song suddenly rushed out with a smile on his face. Gu Yundong hurriedly stood up and ran over. Dr. Song, please wait. I can't wait. Song Dajiang waved his hand without looking back and ran out in large strides. Gu Yundong was so angry that she almost laughed. She did not expect this old man to be so fast despite his old age. She wanted to follow, but Shopkeeper Chao came over to stop her. Gu Yundong took a deep breath. Shopkeeper Chao. I don't think I should give you white sugar. Shopkeeper Chao laughed dryly. Miss Gu, listen to my advice. Don't get into trouble at this time. From the looks of it, Dr. Song must have thought of the prescription and is going to treat his patient. If you stop him at this time, he will definitely be angry. Don't worry. Dr. Song didn't take his things with him. He will still come back. Gu Yundong pursed her lips and did not chase after him. I'll have to trouble Shopkeeper Chao to inform me when the time comes. Of course. Shopkeeper Chao nodded repeatedly. Gu Yundong glanced at him and was about to leave when she suddenly thought of something. She turned her head and asked him, What does Dr. Song like? Shopkeeper Chao understood when he heard that. This was to suit his taste. However, he was really not too sure about this. After all, he had only met Dr. Song a few times and had only interacted with him for less than 4 hours. There was nothing he could do. Gu Yundong wanted to vomit blood. She turned around and returned to the inn. Chapter 262. Little Sun and Little Moon. When the waiter saw her, he quickly ran over. Miss Gu is too unlucky. What is it? Didn't you save that child yesterday? Today, an uncle brought him here to thank you. He sat in the hall for a while and just left. An uncle? Gu Yundong immediately thought of Uncle Gao. It could be seen that he was cold on the outside but warm on the inside. The last time she saw him, he immediately became gentle when facing a child. It was not surprising that he would come to thank her in person. Gu Yundong said to the waiter, If they come again, tell them not to be so polite. It's nothing. Sure thing. Only then did Gu Yundong go upstairs and bring Madame Yang out for dinner. At this moment, Gao Feng was still on a carriage not far from the inn. When he saw Song Dajiang lift the curtain and come up, he hurriedly went forward and asked, Do you have the prescription? Song Dajiang nodded repeatedly and laughed loudly. He took out a bag from his pocket. I was really blind. I was stuck in a dead end. If I hadn't seen this in the pharmacy, I wouldn't have thought of it. Let's go back and try. Gao Feng poked his head over to take a look. It was the bag of white sugar that Shopkeeper Chao had hidden tightly. Sugar. Could this cure disease? Song Dajiang nodded. Actually, I don't have to use white sugar, but this little thing gave me an idea and enlightened me. Moreover, this sugar is thin and white. It's rare. I should give this to Little Bai. The corners of Gao Feng's mouth twitched, but he was still very excited. Then let's go back quickly? Yes. Song Dajiang waved his hand, and the carriage quickly moved. He was happily thinking about the prescription in his mind. After a long time, he finally noticed Bai Yong, who was sitting quietly at the side. He could not help but ask curiously, "Little son, why aren't you saying anything? Are you unhappy that there's a prescription for your uncle's illness?" "Of course I'm happy," Bai Yong immediately retorted, but he quickly sighed again. "But I didn't see Sister Gu today." "Oh, the sister who saved you when you went out with Liang Jing to buy candied plums for your uncle yesterday?" "Yes." Bai Yong sighed faintly. Song Dajiang waved his hand. "It's fine. You'll meet her again if you don't see her this time. Didn't you say that she has something to do in Qing'an Prefecture and won't leave for the time being?" When Bai Yong heard this, he immediately perked up and nodded vigorously. "Yes, I'll come again next time." As they spoke, the carriage stopped at the entrance of a quiet courtyard house. Gao Feng carried Bai Yong down and saw Bai Yu looking around the door. The little girl and Bai Yong were twins. When she saw them, she immediately ran over. "Brother, you're finally back." "Sister, long time no see." Bai Yong held her hand and looked like they had reunited after a long time. The corners of Song Dajiang's mouth twitched. Weren't they separated for less than 4 hours? There was so much drama. After the group of people entered, Song Dajiang quickly went to prepare the medicine. Gao Feng brought the 2 children to the room to see Bai Jian. The young man was only 15 or 16 years old, but his face was pale and he did not look well. Bai Yong lay by the bed and called him softly. "Brother Bai." "Call me little uncle," Bai Jian reminded him with a smile. Bai Yong pouted. "You're only a little older than me." He was clearly 10 years older, but this was considered a little? Song Dajiang came in not long after. He sat on the edge of the bed and took his pulse. After that, he snorted coldly. "Serves you right. You haven't recovered from your internal injuries to begin with, yet you still ran to Yongning Prefecture. It's not like you don't know that it's chaotic over there. Great, there's even a problem with your eyes. I heard that the girl is from Yongning Prefecture, so I went to look for her." Chapter 263. Searching for the girl who escaped. Isn't there Gao Feng? Can't we just get Gao Feng to look for her? Song Dajiang snorted coldly, thinking that he was just messing around. Bai Jian coughed slightly. "It's true that I didn't consider it carefully. It's just that I was a little anxious at that time, so I couldn't care less. Moreover, my internal injuries had already recovered a lot. I didn't expect it to relapse after this trip." It was easy for him to admit his mistake, so Song Dajiang did not say anything else. He only muttered, "You also said that the girl fled all the way from Yongning Prefecture. There are always accidents on the way. What if she—" Before Bai Jian could say anything, Gao Feng shook his head firmly. "There won't be any accidents. That girl is soft on the outside but tough on the inside. Although I've only spoken to her a few times, it can be seen from the fact that she can kill someone without hesitation. She's the kind of person who can be safe in a chaotic world." Song Dajiang glanced at him. "You quite admire this girl. It's a pity that I only thought that we met by chance and wouldn't interact with each other in the future, so I didn't ask her name and background. If I knew more, I might be able to find her sooner." Bai Jian shook his head. "On the way to escape, it's a big taboo to talk too much. She might not tell you the truth. If nothing unexpected happens, that girl will most likely come to Qing'an Prefecture. Unfortunately, Qing'an Prefecture is in chaos. It's hard to say where she will go." Song Dajiang saw that the 2 of them were shaking their heads and the 2 younger ones were sighing faintly. He could not help but twitch his lips and ask softly, "Then have you ever thought that perhaps that thing is not with that girl?" Of course they had thought about it, but, at least for now, she's our only lead. All right, they could only continue searching. Song Dajiang went out again and began to concoct medicinal ingredients. Before finding the target, he had to have a healthy body. Meanwhile, Gu Yundong waited in the inn for another 2 days. Just as she was about to get impatient, there was a knock on the door. Gu Yundong was sitting by the window and staring downstairs. She had been sitting here for most of the day. Coincidentally, under the window of her room was the backyard of Huimin Medical Center. Shopkeeper Chao said that when Dr. Song returned, He usually entered from the backyard. Therefore, she thought that since she was waiting for him, she might as well keep an eye on him while enjoying the scenery. That way, she would know the moment Dr. Song returned. When there was a knock on the door, Madame Yang stopped compiling the puzzle and looked at Gu Yundong. Dong Dong, is it time to eat? Mother, continue working on the puzzle. I'll go take a look. Gu Yundong had not done much for the past 2 days and was a little lazy. She hesitated for a moment before the knock on the door suddenly became louder. She even heard a gruff voice. I thought you said she was in her room. Then, the waiter's voice sounded. Yes, she didn't go out. Previously, she even instructed me to bring dinner upstairs later. Then he called out softly, Miss Gu, Madam Gu, are you there? Coming. Why are you rushing me? Gu Yundong frowned. She suddenly increased her pace and opened the door. The hand that was about to knock on the door again almost hit her face. Fortunately, the man stopped in time and lowered his hand. However, when Gu Yundong saw who it was, her originally impatient expression was instantly replaced with surprise. Chapter 264. Forget it. I need something from you. The next moment, Gu Yundong was suddenly hugged. Sister Gu, I finally see you again. She looked down. Wasn't this Bai Yang? The waiter laughed awkwardly. Miss Gu, these two are looking for you. Well, I'll get going first. With that, he quickly slipped away. Gu Yundong brought them inside and closed the door. She looked at the old man standing there. Dr. Song, why are you with Bai Yang? Song Dajiang was slightly stunned and blinked. Hey, you know me? Gu Yundong was speechless. She forced a smile on her face. 2 days ago, I went to the medical center to look for you. I wanted you to treat my mother. When shopkeeper Chao went to look for you, didn't he say that there was a mother and daughter who had come all the way from Xuanhe Prefecture with Dr. He's reference? Song Dajiang was speechless. F***CK. Was she the one who was scolded badly by him back then? Oh no, oh no, oh no. Little son said that this was his savior? Song Dajiang's heart was in turmoil, but there was no change in his expression. He even frowned slightly and pondered. There's such a thing? Miss, did you get the wrong person? I didn't go back to Huimin Medical Center 2 days ago. Did shopkeeper Chao trick you? Gu Yundong immediately choked. Who would believe you? How could I have recognized you at a glance today if you hadn't returned to the clinic? On the other hand, Bai Yang could not help but blink in confusion. Grandpa Song, didn't you go back to the medical center to get the herbs and white sugar 2 days ago? Song Dajiang instantly had the urge to go up and cover his mouth, but that would ruin his image. He immediately frowned and thought hard. Really? I can't remember clearly. I'm too old, so my brain isn't very good. Moreover, I hadn't slept for 2 days at that time. I was in a daze. All right, let's not talk about the past. Didn't you specially ask me to bring you over to meet your sister Gu today? Since you've seen her, I'll go back first. Gu Yundong felt as if she had seen a split personality. She looked at Song Dajiang and thought of the irritable and bad-tempered Dr. Song 2 days ago. It was as if she had seen a different person. However, Bai Yang's gaze was quickly diverted by him. He immediately waved his hand. All right, Grandpa Song, you can go back first. Goodbye. Seeing that Song Dajiang was about to leave, Gu Yundong hurriedly said, Dr. Song, please wait. I really don't remember what happened 2 days ago. You can't blame me. Song Dajiang turned around and defended himself righteously. Bai Yang nodded in agreement. Sister Gu, what Grandpa Song said is true. His memory is especially bad now. He ate my brother's white sugar yesterday and forgot about it 2 hours later. Song Dajiang. Gu Yundong raised her head and looked at him meaningfully. Don't you feel guilty for lying to a child? Forget it. She had a favor to ask, so it was better not to expose him. Gu Yundong coughed lightly. Since Dr. Song doesn't remember what happened 2 days ago, I'll talk about it again. My name is Gu Yundong. I came to Qing'an Prefecture this time because I found out that Dr. Song is here and wanted to ask Dr. Song to treat my mother. He said that Dr. Song's medical skills are brilliant. If even Dr. Song can't do anything in this world, then my mother. She lowered her eyes slightly, looking very pained. Song Dajiang chuckled. Don't cry. Little son wants to hit me. All right, all right, all right. Let me see. Where's your mother? Gu Yundong pointed at the person who had already put away the puzzle and was sitting quietly by the window. She wanted to ask Song Dajiang if there was something wrong with his eyes. Didn't he see such a big person? Forget it. She had a favor to ask of him, so it was better not to poke at his scars. Chapter 265. Treating Madame Yang. Song Dajiang coughed lightly and sat opposite Madame Yang. He said to her, "Give me your hand. I'll take your pulse." Madame Yang looked at Gu Yundong, who nodded. She slowly and carefully reached out her hand, but she still looked uneasy. How could Song Dajiang not see that there was something wrong with her? His expression immediately turned serious. He closed his eyes slightly and took her pulse quietly. After a while, he stood up and walked behind Madame Yang to look at the back of her head. Madame Yang almost jumped up in shock. It was only when Gu Yundong walked to her side and hugged her that she calmed down. Song Dajiang asked a few more questions. Most of them were similar to what Dr. He had asked back then. However, his emotions were not as intense as Dr. He's. Gu Yundong was a little nervous. Can my mother's illness be cured? It's hard to say. Song Dajiang sighed. Gu Yundong's heart skipped a beat. What's the problem? I can give her acupuncture once, but at most, I can maintain her current state and not let her condition worsen. However, if she wants to be cured, she needs a medicine to soak the silver needles for 2 days. I'll then inject them again to cure your mother's illness. What medicine? It's a medicine called Bimusi. It's not easy to find. She had never even heard of Bimusi. Gu Yundong pursed her lips. If even Song Dajiang said that it was not easy to find, it must be very rare. What does it look like? Where does it usually grow? Do you know where to buy it? No matter what, there was still hope. At most, she would just spend more time searching. If it was really as Song Dajiang had said, that he could stabilize his mother's condition and not let it endanger her life, then at least she would not have to worry so much. Coincidentally, Song Dajiang had a medical book with him. On it were records of Bimusi. He took it out and handed it to Gu Yundong. Take a look. Bimusi's appearance and features are drawn on it. Then he looked around and asked her, the blood clot in your mother's brain is starting to spread. Do you want to treat it now or in the future? Now, of course. Since it had spread, the sooner the better. Song Dajiang nodded. All right, let's go to Huimin Medical Center. It's too noisy here and it's not conducive to treating the disease. Okay. Gu Yundong put the book away and followed Song Dajiang and Bai Yang downstairs with Madame Yang. Shopkeeper Chao did not seem to be around. Only the waiter saw them. When he saw Song Dajiang and Gu Yundong enter together, he was surprised. It was not until Song Dajiang instructed him to prepare some things that he turned around and went to work. Song Dajiang brought them to the backyard. There was also a consultation room there. It was specially prepared for patients who were not convenient to be treated outside. There was no one there now, so Song Dajiang could use it. After the waiter brought the hot water, cotton cloth, and oil lamp, Song Dajiang asked him to help guard the door with Bai Yang and not let anyone disturb them. He had originally planned to let Gu Yundong stay outside, but Madame Yang seemed to be unable to leave her. Song Dajiang cleaned his hands. The moment he picked up the silver needle, he immediately became different. Gu Yundong was more at ease with Dr. Song. Madame Yang closed her eyes and leaned against Gu Yundong without moving. After an unknown period of time, Gu Yundong's hand stiffened slightly. Dr. Song put away the silver needles and said to Gu Yundong, "All right, bring your mother back to rest. There won't be a problem if we do it again tomorrow." Yes. Joy flashed across Gu Yundong's face as she went to open the door. Before she could take a step forward, Bai Yang pounced on her. "Sister Gu, I remember now. I've seen Bimusi before." Song Dajiang's expression changed drastically. He suddenly took a step forward. "Little troublemaker. Shut up." Chapter 266. The little brat is very bad. Gu Yundong was pleasantly surprised when she heard Bai Yang's words, but Song Dajiang's actions extinguished it. She looked at him suspiciously. Song Dajiang looked up at the sky. He didn't know anything. Bai Yang ignored him and said, "When I heard Bai Musi just now, I felt that it sounded familiar. It was as if I had heard it somewhere before. I thought about it for more than 2 hours before I finally remembered. I've already told you to shut up, and you're still talking." Song Dajiang glared at the little guy, his heart bleeding. Bai Yang immediately hid behind Gu Yundong. "But Sister Gu is my savior. I've decided that when I grow up, I'll marry her. I can't hide anything from my wife." Gu Yundong was speechless. "Wait, what did you decide on your own? Did she agree?" Song Dajiang was speechless. He had to quickly tell Bai Jian that his nephew was engaged to someone else, and it was an old woman who was many years older than him. Gu Yundong decided to try her best to ignore Bai Yang's words. In order not to let him treat this matter as a love token in the future, she felt that it was better not to get any information from him. Therefore, she looked at Song Dajiang very sincerely. "Dr. Song, since you've already said this, can you tell me the truth? Do you have Bai Musi? As long as you can treat my mother's illness, feel free to ask. I'll do what I can. Even if I can't do it now, I'll do it in the future." Song Dajiang felt a headache coming on. He glared at Bai Yang fiercely and turned to return to his room. "Now that things have come to this, I'll tell you." Gu Yundong quickly followed him unhappily, but Song Dajiang's next words were like a bucket of cold water. "However, even if you know where Bai Musi is, you won't be able to obtain it." Gu Yundong helped Madame Yang sit down. "What do you mean?" "As for Bai Musi, I really don't have any. However, my master has 2 stocks." Gu Yundong was surprised. "You have a master?" Dr. Song glared at her. "What are you asking? If I didn't have a master, where would I get my medical skills? I thought that since Dr. Song's medical skills were so brilliant, he might be extremely talented and self-taught." In fact, Gu Yundong secretly felt that since Dr. Song was already so old, his master might already be gone. Song Dajiang felt comfortable with her flattery and was about to humble himself. Bai Yang said, "Grandpa Song's master is my biological grandfather, but my grandfather is even younger than Grandpa Song." Gu Yundong silently shut her mouth. Song Dajiang really wanted to throw this brat out. He used to think that this boy was quite cute, but now he realized that he was just an elder sister slave who specially undermined him. He valued his lover over his friend. This brat was very bad. Chapter 267. Undermining by Yang Song Dajiang sighed. "That's because Bai Musi isn't the only thing in the storeroom. Master's precious medicinal herbs are all in there. Unfortunately, the key to the storeroom has been lost." Gu Yundong was speechless. She asked hesitantly, "Can't we find someone and break it open?" Song Dajiang sneered. "That key is not an ordinary key. Not to mention breaking it open, if you're not careful, the lock will be destroyed. Then, what about smashing open that door with a stone or a sword?" Song Dajiang had a strange expression on his face. "We can't smash it. How about a bomb?" Song Dajiang jumped up and stood up abruptly. He pointed at her and scolded, "Bang, bang, bang. Why are you so violent, fierce, and impatient? Do you know what that door is made of? Do you want to smash and blow it up?" Gu Yundong blinked, dumbfounded. "Aren't you the fierce and impatient one now?" "I don't know. It's not a wooden door? That's a jade door. It's such a huge piece of jade that's carved into a perfect door. Any damage will take my master's life. Do you know that? For a Bai Musi, you actually want to destroy the jade door passed down by the Bai family's ancestor. Your conscience has been eaten by a dog." Song Dajiang cursed, scaring Madame Yang so much that she wanted to pick up the teapot beside her and smash it on his head. However, Dong Dong had said that if the other party didn't make a move, she couldn't make a move either. This was called not making a move until the enemy did. However, she still silently grabbed the teapot. Gu Yundong was also a little surprised. The entire door was made of jade? The Bai family was so rich. Bai Yang whispered into her ear, "That door isn't big. Even my Uncle Gao has to bow when he enters. However, Grandpa Song doesn't need to, but the storeroom is very big." Song Dajiang grabbed his collar and wanted to throw him out. Gu Yundong quickly stopped him. All right. Dr. Song, I have no intention of destroying your master's jade door for by Musi. Calm down. Otherwise, your blood will rush to your head and your memory will worsen. You'll even forget your name. Song Dajiang really wanted to vomit blood on her face. Why was this girl so annoying? Gu Yundong decided not to agitate him anymore. She immediately changed the topic. But according to what you said, does that mean that the door won't be able to be opened in the future and the herbs inside won't be able to be used? Wouldn't they be wasted? Aren't we looking for the lost key? Song Dajiang scratched his head, looking very troubled. How long will it take to find it? I don't know, but there are already clues. It should be soon. Song Dajiang glanced at Madame Yang. If you want to treat your mother, why don't you wait for my master and the others to find the key? For by Yang's sake, Bai Musi will be given to you. Why don't you think of a way to find Bai Musi yourself and bring it to me? It'll help your mother insert the needles. That was the only way. Let's do both. She would find someone to help find the herbs. Fortunately, Madame Yang's condition had improved, so she could afford to wait. All right, you can leave. I'm exhausted from talking to you. I've never seen such a stupid person. You're so young, but you keep asking questions. Song Dajiang waved his hand impatiently. Gu Yundong slowly exhaled. Forget it, she had a favor to ask. It was better not to make a move. She would just treat it as self-cultivation. She respected the old and loved the young. She was considerate of his old age and poor memory. Smiling, Gu Yundong took out the teapot from Madame Yang's hand and placed it back on the table before pulling her out. Song Dajiang thought that he had finally sent her away and did not have to worry about Bai Yang undermining him anymore, so he went to open the door eagerly. Unexpectedly, the moment he opened the door, he saw a figure running over angrily. Chapter 268. My family, Dr. Song. You're finally back. Let me ask you, did you take the white sugar I placed in the pharmacy? Shopkeeper Chao rushed in front of him like a gust of wind and asked with his eyes wide open. What are you doing? What's there to shout about? Song Dajiang was even more self-righteous than him. Didn't your boss say that the medicine in the pharmacy is for me to use? Since you've placed it there, why can't I take it? If I can't take it, don't put it there. Seriously, he was so noisy. He didn't know how to respect the old and love the young at all. He dared to shout at him in front of everyone. How rude. Shopkeeper Chao was speechless. Then, he saw Gu Yundong behind him and felt even more aggrieved. Gu Yundong widened her eyes in surprise. Previously, when she heard Bai Yang mention white sugar, she thought that her family already had it. It seemed like it was taken away from Shopkeeper Chao. Gu Yundong did not know whether to laugh or cry. Seeing Song Dajiang walk in angrily, she led Madame Yang past Shopkeeper Chao and said, I'll give it to you later. Shopkeeper Chao's eyes lit up. He swore not to leave the white sugar in the pharmacy again. He had clearly hidden it very well. Dr. Song was too good at finding it. Song Dajiang did not hear what she said. He only saw that Gu Yundong seemed to have said something. Shopkeeper Chao turned around and left happily. He looked suspiciously at Gu Yundong. With a glance, he realized that Bai Yang was actually pulling her sleeve and wanting to follow her. This little ingrate. Song Dajiang decided to ignore him and instructed Gu Yundong, send him back later. Okay. Then, Bai Yang left happily with Gu Yundong. After returning to the inn, Gu Yundong let Madame Yang sleep. It seemed that after the acupuncture, she felt sleepy. Gu Yundong then brought Bai Yang downstairs for dinner and asked him about the Bai family. Is your grandfather's medical skills better than Dr. Song's? Bai Yang nodded. Of course. My grandfather started studying medicine when he was 3 years old. When he was 7 years old, he met Grandpa Song, who was 10 years old. Then he taught Grandpa Song how to recognize herbs and they became master and disciple. Gu Yundong wanted to laugh. So there was such a relationship. Where's your Uncle Gao? Why didn't he bring you here today? Bai Yang took a bite of the drumstick and said, My brother Bai's illness is already cured. He left Qing'an Prefecture to do something. That Gao Feng was quite busy. Then where is your home? Bai Yang shook his head. Brother Bai said that we can't tell anyone about this. However, if Sister Gu marries me in the future, you will be a member of our family. You will know when the time comes. Forget it. Pretend she didn't ask. Then, she asked a few more questions. However, Bai Yang was still young. Chapter 269. Split personality. Gu Yundong picked it up and realized that it was the medical book that Dr. Song had given her during the day. She flipped it open and took a look. Although it was a medical book, it was actually a book that introduced medicinal herbs. The explanation was very detailed. There were pictures, introductions, and habits. Gu Yundong flipped to Bai Muse's page and tried her best to memorize it. Finally, she admitted with a headache that one had to be talented to learn medicine. After memorizing it, she closed her eyes and was confused again. After some thought, she took out a pen, ink, paper, and inkstone from her space. Ever since she settled down, she had started to learn how to write with a brush. Now, she was gradually getting better. She had copied down all of Bai Muse's descriptions, including the appearance of the medicinal ingredient. After copying, she thought about it. Since she couldn't sleep, she might as well copy the other medicines in the book. Song Dajiang threw the medical book to her. He definitely didn't mind her looking at the rest. She would copy it once as if she had read it once to deepen her impression. Tomorrow, she would ask if the copy could be taken away. If not, she would give this book to Dr. Song. Gu Yundong calmed down, put the oil lamp closer, and began to write. The medical book was not very thick. It was still dark when Gu Yundong finished copying it. Then, she sadly realized that she had already forgotten the names of the medicinal herbs on the previous page. Damn it, what the hell? She closed her book. She had already given up. It was better for her to memorize Bai Muse. Madame Yang had just woken up. When Gu Yundong went over, she found her sitting on the bed in a daze and frowned slightly. Mother, what's wrong? Hungry. Gu Yundong laughed. We didn't even eat last night. Let's go downstairs. After breakfast, she took Madame Yang to Huimin Medical Center. Song Dajiang helped her perform the acupuncture again before saying, "All right, we're just waiting for Bai Muse now." Gu Yundong thanked Dr. Song and returned the medical book he had given her yesterday. She also took out the one she had copied. Song Dajiang sipped his tea and said nonchalantly, "Go ahead and copy it. I've already shown it to you, so there's nothing to hide. Take your copy and read it more often. In the future, if you see any good medicinal herbs on it, keep them well. You can let me use them in the future. If there's a lot, I might even take you in as a disciple." Gu Yundong thought about how she had failed to memorize the medicinal properties even after reading it 3 times. Forget it. Song Dajiang put away his book. Just as he put it away, he suddenly thought of something and slammed the table. No, how could you casually copy my medical book? Gu Yundong, huh? Chapter 270. The Peak of Life. Dr. Song snorted and touched his chin as if he was thinking. After a while he said, "You took someone else's things, so you definitely have to pay something." "All right, I'll give you money. How much do you want?" "All right, I'll also give you my mother's consultation fee." Song Dajiang was furious. "Who wants your stinky silver? What do you take me for? I treated your mother to help Bai Yang return your favor. Besides, how can my precious medical book be bought with money?" Gu Yundong was about to go crazy because of this lunatic. Her patience was completely gone. "Then what do you want? What do you want me to pay? Tell me quickly." "Humph. Then give me 2 caddies of white sugar as a token of appreciation." Song Dajiang looked proud. "Huh." Gu Yundong almost choked on her own saliva. "What? If you can give some to Chao, can't you give some to me?" Song Dajiang had almost tortured the guy to extract a confession last night. He had finally gotten shopkeeper Chao to tell him what Gu Yundong had mysteriously said to him that made him leave happily and not pursue his responsibility. Only then did he know that the bag of white sugar was actually from her. Gu Yundong was speechless. "So you've been acting for so long just for 2 caddies of sugar?" Seeing that she did not speak in a long time, Song Dajiang frowned and hesitated. 2 caddies is too much? Then forget it. Just one catty. That's not a high requirement, right? Gu Yundong still did not speak. Song Dajiang couldn't help but say, you must have one catty, right? If you really don't have it, can't you just give me Chao's? Anyway, you don't owe Chao a favor. You owe me one. If you think you can't go back on your word, then give it to him. Give him one tail. Anyway, you didn't agree to give much. Dr. Song, do you like sweet food? Gu Yundong finally asked after thinking for a long time. Song Dajiang refused to admit it. I don't. Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows and did not keep him in suspense. All right, I'll give it to you. Dr. Song, wait here for a while. Help me take care of my mother. I'll be back soon. Okay, no problem. Gu Yundong went to the inn. When she came out of her room, the cloth bag in her hand was a little heavy. Song Dajiang was pacing back and forth in the room. When he heard footsteps, he quickly went up to her. Gu Yundong placed the cloth bag on the table and held a bowl in his other hand. Song Dajiang was stunned. What is it? Open it and take a look. Song Dajiang felt like something was going to explode, but he still couldn't control his restless hands and opened the cloth bag. Then, his pupils suddenly constricted, and the hair on his body seemed to have exploded. Sugar, 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 sugar? He had not thought about it at all. After all, he was certain that Gu Yundong would only give one catty of candy. But here, there were 10 catties, right? Where did this girl get so much? Didn't they say that it was very difficult to buy it in the capital? These are all for you. You refused to accept my mother's consultation fee, so I had no choice but to replace it with this. Gu Yundong lifted the lid of the bowl at the side. This is candy. I made it myself. It's sweet and delicious. You can try it. Song Dajiang took a look and stuffed a candy into his mouth. Ah! It was so delicious that he wanted to cry. It was fragrant and sweet. He felt that his life had reached its peak. Gu Yundong asked him, how does it taste? Song Dajiang nodded calmly. It's all right. Then eat slowly. I'll bring my mother back to rest first. Song Dajiang still nodded. However, as soon as she went out, he instantly stuffed 2 fruit candies into his mouth. Then, he sat on the ground with the bag of sugar in his arms, tears streaming down his face. He was too excited. There was so much white sugar. He did not have to secretly eat others anymore. The heavens had treated him well. By the way, there's one more thing. Gu Yundong suddenly returned. Song Dajiang stood up in a second and forcefully controlled the expression on his face. Chapter 271. How to find Gu Dajiang. Gu Yundong felt that this person, indeed, had split personalities. This was probably because doctors could not treat themselves. Sigh, it was quite pitiful. Song Dajiang was angry. Why did she come back for no reason? He raised his head and explained with a serious expression, the candy I ate just now made my tears come out. Gu Yundong glanced at the bowl. Were there a few missing? But sugar is sweet. My feelings are different from ordinary people, all right? Sigh, I realize that you like to get to the bottom of things. Do you know that you're very unlikable like this? Gu Yundong was enlightened. I will definitely learn my lesson and strive to correct it. All right, whatever you say. As long as you're happy. She respected the old and loved the young. Only then did Song Dajiang brush off his clothes and ask her unhappily, what else is there? Hurry up and say it. I'm annoyed to see you. Really, if this person had not cured her mother, Gu Yundong would have beaten him up. She walked over and handed him a letter. Qin Wenjing asked me to give this to you. Qin Wenjing. Song Dajiang looked at her in surprise. Where is he now? Gu Yundong pointed at the letter. You'll know once you read it. Song Dajiang was a little hesitant. After a while, he reached out to take the letter. Gu Yundong did not know what was written on it. She only knew that Dr. Song's originally casual expression slowly turned serious. Gradually, it overlapped with his appearance when he was treating the illness. Gu Yundong felt that he probably had 3 personalities? I'll go. She left quietly, but Song Dajiang remained silent for a long time after reading the letter. He sat there for half a day and even forgot about the existence of the white sugar. Gu Yundong had been in the Qing'an Prefecture for 5 to 6 days. Madame Yang's matter was half resolved, but Gu Dajiang's whereabouts were still unknown. It was not easy to find someone in the vast sea of people. Gu Yundong thought for 2 whole days in the inn. On the morning of the 3rd day, Song Dajiang came with Bai Yang. He said to Gu Yundong, "I'm going to the capital. Give me your address. When there's news of Bai Musi, I'll send you a letter." Gu Yundong was surprised and quickly wrote down the address for him. Bai Yang also had a bitter expression on his face. "Sister Gu, I'm going to the farm outside the city. Brother Bai is going there to recuperate. I have to go too. It won't be easy to see you in the future." As he spoke, he reached for Song Dajiang's hand and took the note from him. He read the address carefully twice before saying to Gu Yundong, "Sister Gu, I'll write to you when the time comes. Sister Gu has a younger brother who's about the same age as you. You can write to him and even be friends with him." She hoped that he wouldn't mention anything about devoting himself to her again. She couldn't take it. Bai Yang thought for a moment and nodded. "I'll write to you both." Both Song Dajiang and Bai Yang had already packed their things and were about to set off. Song Dajiang's carriage was outside the inn. When they left the city, they could just bring Bai Yang to the farm. They had specially come to bid farewell to Gu Yundong. In the end, Bai Yang even felt wronged and wanted Gu Yundong to send them to the city gate. Gu Yundong also wanted to go out for a walk. It was not a good idea to stay in the room, so she agreed and brought Madame Yang out. What she did not expect was that on this trip, she really thought of a solution that was not a solution. Chapter 272. Puzzle. After sending Dr. Song and the boy back, Gu Yundong passed by the notice board at the city gate and could not help but narrow her eyes. There were 2 soldiers standing in front of the notice board. There were notices and decrees posted on it that the officers were announcing to the commoners, but not many people were looking at them. However, there was a wall not far away that was surrounded by many people. Gu Yundong did not notice it when she entered the city. She brought Madame Yang over and asked the people beside her. Only then did she know that this was considered a civilian notice board. There hadn't been any in the past. It was announced a few months ago after the new prefecture magistrate took office. Ever since the chaos, many people had been separated from their families. Some people asked about their families' whereabouts, and some posted all kinds of news on the streets and alleys. When the new prefecture magistrate arrived, he saw many notices on the wall. He was planning to reorganize the Qing'an prefecture boldly. The environment on the street was naturally very important. Later on, someone suggested that everyone stick the notices together. Hence, this wall was filled with all kinds of missing persons notices and random news. Gu Yundong glanced at the pictures on the wall and sighed again. The pictures drawn by these people were extremely abstract. Her eyes darted around slightly. She took a charcoal pen and memorized the information on the notice board. Then, she brought Madame Yang back. Gu Yundong wanted to post a missing person notice himself. Even if Gu Dajiang didn't see it, as long as someone who had seen him provided some clues, she would have a direction to look for the man. But Gu Yundong had a problem. Since she was going to put up a missing person notice, she would definitely draw it very realistically. However, the last time she drew someone so realistically, it was a wanted poster. Although the bandit leader had been caught, God knew if his other lackeys were hiding in the crowd, waiting for an opportunity to take revenge. It would be strange if they didn't look for her when they saw the missing person notice that came from almost the same artist. Even if she escaped safely, what about Gu Dajiang? Would he become their target? Therefore, Gu Dajiang's portrait couldn't be the only one unique among the missing person notices. That would be too suspicious. After returning to the inn, Gu Yundong consolidated the information she had copied down, especially the addresses on it. After packing up, she turned to Madame Yang and said, "Mother, let's rent a courtyard in tomorrow. I don't know how long it will take to find father. It's inconvenient to stay in an inn all the time." Chapter 273. Drawing portraits for others. She sent Madame Yang to Huimin Medical Center in the afternoon, but Gu Yundong was still worried about leaving her alone in the newly rented courtyard. Fortunately, Shopkeeper Chao's wife was a good person and was also helping out at the medical center. So Gu Yundong asked her to take care of Madame Yang. The other party naturally agreed. She knew that Miss Gu had given her family something good. This small favor was nothing. Gu Yundong was wearing rough clothes, the kind that was very common on the streets. After searching the spatial storage for a long time, she could not find any hair dye. Hence, she went to ask shopkeeper Chao and knew that there were many things that could be used to dye hair. Gu Yundong found an excuse to ask shopkeeper Chao to create 2 hair dye solutions, one black and one white. Now, she had dyed more than half of her hair white and tied her chest flat. Although she was not very mature, she still had some curves. She put on some makeup, and when she turned around, she was a short old man. Gu Yundong only left when she saw that she was fine. Gu Yundong found a blacksmith shop according to the addresses she had previously gathered. 2 brothers owned this shop. It was said that they had a younger brother who went missing during the chaos. The 2 brothers found someone to draw a rough portrait and pasted the notice on the wall. However, after such a long time, they were still nowhere to be found. There was only half of the notice left. Fortunately, there was an address on it. When Gu Yundong walked in with his back hunched, the 2 brothers were stunned. "Sir, what do you want? A scissor or a kitchen knife?" Gu Yundong coughed and waved her hand. She said in a rough voice, "I don't buy things. I saw a notice at the city gate. Are you looking for your brother?" The 2 brothers looked at each other and were a little excited at the same time. "Sir, you've seen him? Do you know where he is?" Gu Yundong shook her head and coughed again. "I've never seen him before." Seeing their disappointed expressions, she added, "Even if I had seen him before, I wouldn't have recognized him. Don't you think about what the person in your portrait looks like? It can't be helped. We spent a lot of money to hire someone to draw it, but it's nothing good." Gu Yundong shook her head. "I'll help you draw a picture. Tell me what your brother looks like." The 2 brothers were stunned again. "Sir, Don't worry, I won't take money. I'm just doing a good deed." With that, she took out a charcoal pencil and paper and laid them on the table. "Tell me," she urged impatiently. The 2 brothers thought about it. She didn't charge them, and it didn't look like she was extorting them. In addition, they weren't forging anymore, so why not give it a try? Chapter 274. Someone at home. That family was quite well off and had a few servants. At that time, when the city was in chaos, a maid-servant of theirs actually ran away with a lot of gold and silver jewelry. Although they had reported it to the officers, it was obvious that there were too many such things and they could not catch her at all. Gu Yundong had also asked them if they wanted to find the maidservant and let others think that she knew the maidservant's whereabouts and invite her in. In the end, she had been tricked into drawing the maidservant's appearance. She had also drawn the jewelry that the girl had taken away. The 3rd and 4th families. When she came out of the 5th family's house, it was almost time for curfew. She quickly washed off the makeup on her face, put on a hat to cover her white hair, and went to Huimin Medical Center to fetch Madame Yang home. Fortunately, the sky was dark and she was in a hurry to leave. Shopkeeper Chao's wife did not notice anything strange about her. After returning and waiting for Madame Yang to fall asleep, Gu Yundong dyed her hair black. Then, she began to recall Gu Dajiang's appearance and draw him. After painting, just as she was about to write down Gu Dajiang's information, the situation of the 2nd family suddenly flashed across her mind. After some thought, she wrote on the information about Gu Dajiang. "This person doesn't pay his debts. If there's news of this person, no matter how many clues there are, you will receive 10 taels of silver if they're true." After writing down the address of this small courtyard, she blew on it, put it away and went to bed. The next morning, Gu Yundong was woken up by a scream. She quickly got up to take a look and saw Madame Yang holding the portrait. She shouted and jumped, "Dong dong, it's Dad, Dad." "Yes, it's my father, your husband." Gu Yundong smiled helplessly. Madame Yang had a happy smile on her face. Her fingers gently brushed past Gu Dajiang's face on the blueprint, and her eyes were filled with nostalgia. Gu Yundong was stunned for a moment before she suddenly reacted. She should have drawn Gu Dajiang's image and placed it at home so that her mother and siblings could have something to think about. She walked over and hugged Madame Yang gently. "Mother will find father soon." "Yeah. Gu Yundong quickly tidied herself up, changed into women's clothes, and brought Madame Yang to the city gate. As soon as they arrived, they heard a commotion, especially exclamations. This is too similar. Look, even her hair is strand by strand. Who drew it? I want this person to draw one for me too. Don't even think about it. Didn't you hear what the person posted just now said? The other party didn't take a single cent, he's just doing a good deed to help others. Gu Yundong pursed her lips and smiled. Chapter 275. Pretend no one has been here. Gu Yundong stopped in her tracks and frowned as she pulled Madame Yang to the side. How did they come so quickly? Just as she was thinking about it, the person in the room came out. It was a man in the clothes of an officer. He was someone that Gu Yundong knew, the leader of the officers who came over after she saved the child at the inn that day. The officer stood at the door of the central room and gave her a look, telling her to close the courtyard door first. Gu Yundong had a good impression of him. It was said that not long after the kidnappers were taken away that day, they were asked about the whereabouts of the children who had been kidnapped during the Lantern Festival. The officers were lucky. They had planned to take Dajiang away, but they did not expect to be caught by Gu Yundong. Later on, the government even sent money to Gu Yundong, saying that it was sent by the children's families. Therefore, when the officer looked mysterious, she closed the courtyard door even though she was puzzled. Then, she brought Madame Yang into the central room. The officer's surname was Li. He waited for them to enter before saying, "I'm sorry for scaring you. I was just afraid of alerting the enemy, so I had no choice but to do this." Gu Yundong was puzzled. "What do you mean?" Officer Li explained, "Miss, I'm afraid you don't know. Last year, Qing'an Prefecture was in chaos. At that time, a bandit leader took the opportunity to enter the city and kill many people. The Xuanhe Prefecture sent troops to suppress him, but that bandit leader escaped. Later on, a magical painter from the Xuanhe Prefecture drew the appearance of the bandit. Only then did the bandit be brought to justice in 3 days." Magical painter? It's a pity that although the bandit has been beheaded, the little bandits under him have not all been captured. The portrait that Miss took out today should be from the same person as the one that drew the bandit leader. They were both drawn by that magical artist. After the prefecture magistrate found out about this, he guessed that some bandit might come to ask about the artist. He immediately gathered all the constables and guards to the house of the person who posted the portrait today, waiting to catch a turtle in a jar. Gu Yundong could not help but widen her eyes. Where did the new emperor find such a smart new prefecture magistrate? He even thought of this. In fact, Gu Yundong had also guessed that the bandits would come to ask about the artist, so she had written an anonymous letter to analyze the situation. She planned to send it to the government office in a while and give it to Officer Li in front of her. She even thought about what would happen if the government office didn't take it to heart. Therefore, the few families she went to yesterday night had been specially selected. For example, the 2 brothers from the blacksmith's forge who were tall and not to be trifled with, the big family with guards at home, the family with a few men who lived near the government office. Bandits were usually unwilling to find a family that was too strong and might expose themselves. In the end, they could only choose the weakest one with no foundation, which was only the mother and daughter. She planned to send Madame Yang to the Chao family for the night and then wait to see if any little thieves would come. Unexpectedly, before she could do anything, the prefecture magistrate had already thought of it. Although Gu Yundong had never met the current emperor, from the things he had done after he ascended the throne and the officers he had assigned to govern the towns and cities, Dajiang would definitely prosper under his governance. Seeing that she was silent, Officer Li thought that she was frightened. "You don't have to be afraid. I'm not the only one here. There are ambushes around. We definitely won't let anything happen to Mississippi." Only then did Gu Yundong look up. "Of course I'm not afraid. I'll pretend that there's no one else in my house and go do my own thing."